Everyone, I'll call the public hearing of Thursday, October 30th, 2025 to order. This meeting is being held in person and by electronic means. Council members and the public may participate by either method. Any members joining electronically are reminded to enable video to confirm quorum. The meeting is being live streamed on the city's website and on YouTube, and meeting progress will be updated regularly on X at Van City Clerk. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and we thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. I also want to recognize the immense contributions of City of Vancouver's team members who work hard every day to help make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we please have roll call?
Councillor Klassen in the chair. Mayor Sim is on a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Kirby-Young. I'm not here yet. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly is on a leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Meisner.
Present.
Councillor Joe.
Present.
Councillor Orr. Councillor Maloney. This meeting has quorum, Chair Klassen.
Thanks very much. All right, before we begin, a few announcements. Acting Mayor Montague asked me to chair for him this evening, and he is joining the meeting remotely. Are there any objections from council? Hearing none, we will continue on, and the public may speak in person or by phone, or may submit written comments to Mayor and Council. Speakers may only speak once and will have up to 5 minutes to comment on the merits of the application. Please state whether you support or oppose the recommendations and if you are a Vancouver resident. Those representing 4 or more individuals or groups, including themselves, may speak for up to 8 minutes. Each person being represented must confirm their presence in person or by phone and may not speak separately. Please follow the live stream at Van City Clerk on X to track meeting progress and to know when your turn to speak is approaching. Please note the live stream has a slight delay. Written comments can be submitted to Mayor and Council through Mayor and Council public hearing feedback form linked on X. If you pre-registered with a presentation, say next to have the clerk advance your slides. A reminder, at public hearings, Council acts as a quasi-judicial body and must focus solely on the merits of the rezoning or heritage application. Members may ask clarifying questions of staff or speakers, including the applicant, but should reserve debate until after the speakers list is closed. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1. Approve the application in principle, 2. Approve the application in principle with amendments, 3. Refuse the application, or 4. Refer the application to staff for further consideration. Finally, if all speakers are not heard this evening, the public hearing will recess and reconvene on Thursday, November 6, 2025 at 3 p.m. So our first item is item 1, modification to the condition of enactment for 3077 Madam Street, formerly 1405 East 15th Avenue and 3047 3071 Madam Street. Before we begin the agenda, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? Seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by BC Housing to replace the enacted housing agreement with a new housing agreement for 3077 Madame Street, formerly 1405 East 15th Avenue and 3047-3071 Madame Street, to allow the conversion of 81 previously approved market rental units to social housing units. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence have been received since referral to public hearing. 4 pieces of correspondence in support, 13 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 2 pieces of correspondence regarding other aspects related to the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you, Clerk. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be heard at the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good evening, Acting Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Sarah Cranston, rezoning planner for this application at 3077 Madame Street. The site is shown in red and located at the corner of Knight Street, East 15th Avenue, and Madame Street in the Kensington Cedar Cottage neighborhood. The site is zoned CD1 and currently developed with a 6-story residential building that is near occupancy. To provide some background on the history of the site, in July 2021, Council approved a rezoning application for a 6-story residential building with 82 market rental units. This proposal was considered under the Affordable Housing Choices interim rezoning policy, which has now been repealed. In July 2022, CD1 bylaw 825 and the housing agreement for the site were enacted. In March 2023, the development permit was issued, and in June of that same year, the building permit was issued and construction commenced. In June 2025, BC Housing approached the city to notify of their intent to purchase the near occupancy building from the owner and secure the units as social housing. The proposal requires consideration at a public hearing because an enacted housing agreement is being replaced with a new housing agreement. This will facilitate a change in residential tenure and secure 81 units previously approved as market rental to social housing. The site will be owned by BC Housing, operated by the YWCA, and meet the city's definition of social housing, with 30% of the units rented below housing income limits, or known as HILS, as set by the province. The public benefits accrued from this proposal are 81 units of social housing, which helps the city advance housing targets identified in the Vancouver Housing Strategy. To support the conversion in residential tenure, BC Housing will be seeking a grant from the city for the previously paid DCLs on the project, which are exempted for social housing. This request will be considered by Council next week through a separate report. The recommendation being considered tonight to replace the housing agreement to facilitate social housing is not contingent on Council's later decision on the BC Housing grant request. In conclusion, staff recommend approval of the request to modify a condition of enactment and replace an enacted housing agreement with a new housing agreement. This will facilitate the conversion of 81 market rental units to social housing and advances the city's social housing commitments. Staff are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to present the application if in attendance?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eva Shi, and I am a development manager with BC Housing. With me from BC Housing are Amanda, Director of Operations, Nicola, Senior Manager of Development Services. We also have Lisa, the Vice President at YWCA. We have joined today's public hearing to answer any questions you may have about our project at 3077 Madame Street. We were made aware that Fabric was looking to sell the building after construction complete, and we purchased the building to deliver affordable housing this year without displacing any existing tenants. We're excited to work with YWCA on the site, and we'll pass to Lisa now to provide more information on the operations of the building.
Good evening, Acting Mayor Montague and council members. I'm Lisa Rupert from the YWCA Metro Vancouver, and we will be the operators at Madam Street. We go to the next slide. I wanted to share a little bit about who we are, who we serve, our approach to property management, and our plans for the Madam Street site. The YWCA Metro Vancouver was founded in 1897. And we're committed to gender equity, which includes providing affordable housing to women and children who are disproportionately impacted by the high cost of market housing. To date, we operate 16 housing communities across Metro Vancouver. 7 of these are in the city of Vancouver proper. Our housing is well managed. It integrates seamlessly into the neighborhood. I'm often told when I'm sharing stories about, this is where this site is located, people will say, I live right by there, and I didn't realize that was YWCA housing. Some of our sites are located above a working Vancouver fire hall and above a Vancouver public library, and we really strive to maintain really good relationships with all of our neighbors. We go to the next slide. At Madam Street, we're going to be providing rent-geared to income housing for women and for children. Our priority is given to applicants who have strong connections to Vancouver so that they can remain close to work, school, friends, and their community networks. We're going to have staff on site Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, including our community development coordinator. So this is a role we have in all of our rent geared to income housing, and the purpose of it is to foster a sense of community in the housing and to connect people to community resources. So some of the things they do are facilitating regular tenant meetings, hosting events. Popular ones at some of our other sites are the Mother's Day tea, and when kids go back to school, there's usually a big celebratory barbecue for the mums. They oversee tenant committees like the gardening committee and the social committee. They distribute donations. We always have backpacks donated for back to school filled with school supplies because we really want to support children in their education. And we have presents of peace hampers every holiday season, and I've been told they're the best ones in Metro Vancouver. We connect tenants with resources. We have an employment navigator who comes in, and she can support tenants who want to explore their career options. And we refer them to other resources. For example, they have priority in our YWCA childcare. Going to the next slide, our approach to property management of tenants really focuses on balancing tenant rights and their responsibilities. Tenants are selected based on their need, their connection to the community, and their ability to live independently and to be good neighbors. Our property manager conducts thorough interviews and reviews policies and sets clear expectations for their tenancy. We want to start everyone off on the right foot. We require 2 positive reference checks for tenants, and our rent calculation clerk assesses income and assets prior to move-in to determine eligibility and then does annual rent reviews. We don't allow home-based businesses with foot traffic. We do allow 1 cat and 1 dog with a pet deposit, and we have policies around responsible pet ownership. And all of our buildings have quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. On the next slide, talking more about the approach to managing the asset, the building. Our goal is to have a properly maintained building that fits in with the neighborhood. Suite inspectors do move-in, move-out, and annual suite inspections. We have portals for tenant repair requests, tenant complaints, and a 24/7 emergency line for building emergencies. We have comprehensive maintenance plans. Vendors are in place for the cleaning of the common areas, lawn care, snow removal, building systems maintenance, gutter cleaning, window cleaning, and dryer vent cleaning. We have maintenance workers on site for repairs, and they do weekly inspections of the common areas to ensure for safety and for cleanliness. And last but not least, we're committed to hearing and promptly addressing any concerns from neighbors. We want to really fit into communities, and we want to contribute to making it a better community. I would just want to thank everyone for their time. We're really excited about this project.
Right, thank you very much for that presentation. Are there any questions from council to the staff or the applicant, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? I see Councillor Kirby-Young is in the queue. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. My first question might be either for staff or the applicant. I have 2 questions. My first one is, why is Fabric selling this building?
To my understanding, Fabric's intention was also always to sell the building after construction was complete. They had, it just so happened that the timing worked out that we were looking to secure housing and deliver affordable housing right now.
Okay, my first question, the next question, I'll direct the first part to staff, is you referenced, I know it's coming in a separate report with a request for waivers or refund, I guess the appropriate term, or on DCLs already paid. Have those actually been paid by Fabric?
Hi, thanks for your question. Yes, the DCLs have previously been paid for the project.
Okay. And I realize that that'll be a separate decision of council. I guess my follow-up question to the applicant then is that why that waiver is being sought, and is this project viable for you without if those waivers are not returned?
Internal to BC Housing, we have benchmarks to help us determine, as well as multiple due diligence processes to determine what the price would be to purchase a price and make it affordable for the tenants. So we are seeking it to help us meet those targets. And but today's I guess public hearing doesn't speak to the grant. It just speaks to the conversion of the housing agreement. So I don't want to detract from that.
In the context of the decision today, maybe I could frame the question this way, and because council is being asked to approve this shift of tenure, is the project viable for BC Housing as it is if those rental rate grants are not returned?
It would be impactful to how we have currently structured this partnership with the YWCA and Fabric. If that was the decision of council, we would have to revisit how we're proposing to deliver this housing.
So can I direct a follow-up question on that to staff then? Because I understand the two decisions are being split, but I'm looking for some input from staff on the fact we're being asked to make a decision, and we should try to make a decision on how all housing projects in the spirit that they are viable. But it sounds like the viability of these projects depended on one. Why would we return waivers when somebody's already paid them and they were provided in the context of the previous developer and owner who's now presumably sold this building at a profit?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Templar Sanctuary Stitch, Director of Rezoning. So just as some context, had this project come forward initially to public hearing as a social housing project, it would have been eligible for DCL waivers, at which point it wouldn't have had to pay the DCL initially for that. So because it was a rental project, it wasn't eligible for the waiver, which is why they've paid. So this proposal tonight is to look to modify the conditions of the approval and the housing agreement to authorize and allow for the social housing and the requirements associated with social housing for the site.
I only have a minute left. I understand that very clearly and very well. The crux of my question zeroes in is what I'm hearing from the applicant is that this project is the viability of this project. It sounds like it's really dependent upon a set decision from council.
Yeah, fair question. And just to try to answer quickly, the purpose of tonight is only the housing agreement. The separate decision later is on the other matter. For them to enact their housing agreement, I would imagine they'd need to know that they had a viable project. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't go forward to enact their housing agreement. They probably wouldn't end up advancing the project. These are all things that the applicant could speak to in greater detail, but those two items are intentionally separate for your role of a public hearing tonight versus the grant authorization on a separate vote.
So in my last 30 seconds, I'm back to the applicant. If council does not advance these grant waivers, my question very explicitly to you is, will you continue with this project?
It would require a follow-up conversation with both Fabric and the YWCA. I'm not in a position to provide that confirmation right now.
Okay, that's my time. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I have a few questions of my own. And first of all, having been to other YWCA projects in the past, I know that I've seen some really beautiful sites. And so I have confidence in the operator for this project. Just a quick question of BC Housing. Is it a practice to buy brand new, newly constructed buildings? Obviously, this is not tenanted yet, but is that something that has happened in the past, or is this a new approach?
BC Housing delivers products in many different ways, and we will sometimes buy land and develop from the start, but we have done a similar partnership with the YWCA on a project on Slocan before, where there was an opportunity to partner with a developer. The benefit for the YWCA and for BC Housing and for the community is that projects that are already in stream become available as housing earlier. So projects are delivered in a variety of ways. We have done this before, and we have done it with YWCA, and it's a very successful building in the community.
Thank you. And the Slocan project is one that I was referring to as well. Is it a building like this that was built as market rental? Is it sort of fully built and built out and furnished? And would it be finished in the way that you might normally in a social housing project? Just out of curiosity.
I can say that I've visited this building many times, and it's very beautifully finished, and it will depend on the families that are moving into the building. In some cases, the YWCA will support with furniture, but it will depend on each family's different circumstances. But I can say that this is a really beautiful building in a great location, and that's why we were interested in this partnership.
Mm-hmm. I was actually driving by it early this morning, and I noticed all lights are off, and realized that there was nobody living there yet. But so I've been kind of watching that project. It's on a regular part of my commute. So it'll be nice to see some lights on in there. So just a quick question for our planning staff. Note that this is a market project that is now going to be a social housing project. I know that we have numbers that we're trying to achieve in both categories. Clearly, this change benefits social housing. But do we, when we are planning these kinds of, are we conscious about requiring market units in this area, or are we this adaptation to social housing aligns with our goals for that community?
Thanks for the question, Annie Mobiles, Assistant Director for Housing Policy and Regulation. Yeah, it's a good question. We would see it as a great opportunity to deliver on our social housing targets found in the Housing Vancouver strategy in really quick order. Usually it takes quite a long time for social housing projects to move from kind of conception and partnerships and funding requests all the way through to occupancy. So this is a really quick turnaround to be able to deliver on those targets in the Housing Vancouver strategy.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's right next to Clark Park, and I know the families are going to be there are going to really enjoy being a part of that neighborhood. So thanks very much. That's the end of my questions. So now we will make a second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We will now hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Our first speaker today is speaker number 1, Paul Hecht. Is Paul present?
Present. Thank you.
Very good. Welcome, Paul. You've got 5 minutes.
Thanks. I don't think I'll need all that time. I thought in the opening remarks, and I wasn't able to find the documentation, I heard a figure of 30% of the occupancy going to social housing. Can that be clarified? For the public and the residents of the neighborhood, we are certainly not used to the vernacular that you all use of DCL and everything. So if you could simplify what the occupancy makeup will be of all the, I understand there's 81 units in the building. So what was that 30% figure? Just any clarification you could provide would be really helpful.
Speaker, we generally don't, I can certainly make sure that this question gets asked in our final questions to staff. But just for clarification, when you say 30%, you're referring to 30% of what?
That's what I heard in the opening remarks, that 30% of the units would be designated to below market. It was tied to the cost of the units.
Okay.
Is there a sliding scale that can be clarified?
Well, I think what we'll do is we can ask the questions at the end if you don't mind just listening to there's only a couple of speakers. So when we're at the end, we can probably bring those questions back to our staff and they'll be able to answer more specifics on that one for you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling in. All right, our second speaker on the phone is Kevin Hughes. Kevin, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
All right. All right. Good evening, Mayor, and acting Mayor, sorry, and members of the council. I'm Kevin Hughes. I'm a Vancouver resident, and as I think will become clear, I'm opposed to the amendment. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak tonight, yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, I've lived in this neighborhood for more than a decade, and it's really changed a lot in that time. We've welcomed new residents, new small businesses, new forms of housing. I'm here tonight not because I'm opposed to change or to affordable housing. In fact, I strongly support both, but because I believe that how we make those changes matters just as much as the outcomes we hope to achieve. I think some of the earlier council questions were getting at this problem as well. So when this project was first approved, the understanding and the basis for community acceptance was that it would deliver much needed market rental housing. No doubt about that. This is what was presented, and that's what residents supported. If you look at the developer's website, you'll see a post from Fabric Living dated July 2021, thanking residents for their, quote, overwhelming support, and said that they were, quote, excited to deliver a great rental building in the neighborhood. So the city staff's earlier statement that selling was always Fabric Living's intent was grossly misleading. And there's a bit of a pattern emerging here, I think. So you would think, given Fabric Living's clear commitment to build market rental housing, it's fair for us as residents to now be asking, what has changed? Why is this promise being rewritten now after all of the approvals are in place and community trust has been secured? If the motivation is financial or access to new fundings or something else, this should be discussed openly. Amending a project's tenure after the fact isn't not just about changing a business plan. It fundamentally alters the understanding between the city, developer, and community. As others have alluded to in the comments submitted, changing the term now reeks of bait and switch tactics. Worse still, it represents a serious breach of public trust and sets a really troubling precedent for how negotiated agreements are handled going forward. Council's decisions must be consistent and predictable. Otherwise, residents are rightly left wondering whether commitments made during the public process mean anything at all. Trust in the city's process depends on integrity, transparency, and honest communication, attributes that I know all of you deeply value. Yet, in this case, many neighbors were unaware of the proposed amendment or even of this public hearing. They assumed the project was proceeding as approved, wondering why it was still empty after such a long time. Those that have spoken up, the 75% who are opposed to this amendment, are rightly concerned about the lack of specific information about how the building will be utilized. This isn't meaningful consultation. This isn't how you build trust. Like many Vancouverites, I fully support the creation of affordable and inclusive housing across our city, but we need to ensure it's done in a balanced and thoughtful way that strengthens communities. The immediate area around 3077 Madams already includes two significant social housing developments. One long-standing complex a block away on 1435 East 14th, and a brand new 157-unit building on 1425 East 12th, same block. Planning really should be aiming for diverse mixed-income neighborhoods, not pockets of concentrated social housing in what is already a pretty neglected part of the city. Overloading one small area with similar housing types contradicts the city's own planning principles for balanced development. The goal should be maintaining a healthy mix that benefits everyone, and keeping 3077 Madams as market rental contributes to that mix. It adds stability, broadens the housing supply, and keeps faith with what was originally promised. In closing, I urge the Council to reject the proposed amendment and uphold the original housing agreement that secured 3077 Madams as market rental. Or alternatively, delay the amendment to allow for a more fulsome and transparent community consultation that lays out the facts and the truth and allowing and time for meaningful community engagement. So I hope you'll do the right thing, which is respect the commitments made to the community, protect the integrity of city processes, and ensure that future developments can't just rewrite the rules once approvals are in hand. Thanks for your time tonight and for your service to the people of Vancouver.
Thank you, Speaker. Okay. If there are any additional speakers in the chamber, and I don't see anybody right now, Clerk, are there any additional speakers on the line? No. Okay. So this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We'll now take a 2-minute recess for any additional speakers to call in or come forward to the podium. Meeting. Clerk, are there any additional speakers on the line? Okay. Seeing no further speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Clerk, has there been a large volume of public comments received on this item since 5 p.m.? Okay, I am now closing the receipt of public comments. Seeing that there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
I'd just like to thank Council for your consideration. We really do think that this is a wonderful opportunity to serve women and children in the community. It's incredibly well located. It's a beautiful building, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thanks very much. Does staff have any closing comments?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to clarify the question asked by a member of the public regarding the 30% of the units. Just wanted to clarify that the city's definition of social housing is that 30% of the units are secured at Hills rate, which are maximum of maximum rents dictated by the province. So 30% of the units, about 24, 25 of them in this case, will be permanently secured at that more affordable rate.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay. We have a couple of questions from the council here, so I'll advance Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I want to follow up on my previous line of questioning back to staff now. And I'm not aware of a precedent similar to this. Maybe staff can speak to it. Because what I'm hearing, notwithstanding sort of a reputable operator, is council's being asked to approve a project that we're hearing from the applicant may or may not be viable without a further grant. Am I correct in understanding that there would be potentially council would be paying, or the city of Vancouver would be paying twice, once for these DCL waivers are already given to Fabric, and a second time with a future potential grant recommendation to BC Housing, who typically, as I understand it, has responsibility as the senior government to provide social housing costs. And yet I'm hearing that we're being asked to approve a project that may not be viable without a grant that is continued on a future decision of council. And is it being brought forward as a grant because there was no way to deal with this within the public hearing so that council could tie these pieces together on this decision?
Thanks for the question, Councillor. Templer here from Director of Rezoning. So again, just to clarify, Fabric did pay the DCLs initially, so they have been collected and deposited to the city. The DCL bylaws do not provide the opportunity to refund DCLs, so we can't give money back per se once the building has been constructed. The purpose of tonight is to talk about the housing tenure. So the zoning isn't changing, the form isn't changing, nothing else of the project is changing. It's just about the definition and the permission in the housing agreement for social housing. The separate vote on Tuesday as a requirement of our process is to consider whether or not council wants to issue a grant to BC Housing to operate. It's in the amount equal to, or I think approximate to, the DCL amount that was previously paid. If council doesn't approve that, that's a separate decision. It'll then be up to the proponent to decide whether or not to proceed with the changes to the housing agreement or not. If they don't, it stays market rental. If they do and they proceed, then it becomes social housing.
So I guess why are staff recommending that? I'm not aware. Please let me know, Templar, if there's another situation. I can't recall one where City of Vancouver provides cash grants to BC Housing on projects. Why is that happening?
Thanks for the question. I'll ask my colleague Annie to help with that one.
Thanks, Templar. It really, the way that it's modeled here is much like our CHIP grants, the Community Housing Infrastructure grants. It's not able to go through a typical CHIP stream, but the city does provide capital grants to nonprofits, sometimes in partnership with BC Housing, sometimes as BC Housing as a proponent. Because of the unique situation here with the DCLs being paid and no ability to refund, the advice was that we bring forward a separate grant, but it is much like the CHIP grants.
So the city would be paying twice on this project?
No, the applicant has paid the DCLs, as Templar said. The DCLs have been paid, and the city has those funds.
Maybe I didn't frame that well, but yeah, this feels funky to me. I have to say. So to reflect back, if we approve this project, neither staff and it sounds like the applicant cannot give council assurance that this is viable without council providing further money. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think that's what we're saying, Councillor. Just to clarify as well, there is no waiver of the DCL. So they've paid the DCL. That money is in the city's account. That is not being returned. A separate decision on the grant is pending. And again, they are distinct. If BC Housing were to proceed without the grant, that's their choice. If they proceed with the grant, that's their choice as well. So we have to keep them separate from a housing agreement and a grant perspective.
But Templar, we heard from BC Housing that they couldn't say in this moment that this project is viable without the grant, the proposed future decision grant. Can staff say whether they think that this project is viable without this? Are we going to be facing a potential situation where we approve a project tonight that is not viable?
I can't speak to whether or not BC Housing would find this project viable, as I just heard their remarks. What I can say is typically we offer DCL waivers for projects that are social housing to help with viability and to support projects proceed in the form of social housing to help recognize the community benefit associated with subsidizing those deeper levels of affordability in the housing income limits.
Okay, I'm finding this process very funky. Thank you.
I don't know if it's helpful. I might just add, there is a housing agreement that secured the original project that is on title. So this decision tonight replaces that housing agreement. If the project, if BC Housing and the proponent and the Y decide not to proceed, that original housing agreement, which is a 100% market rental building, would still be in place. And so then the owner could decide what to do with it after that. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Dominato.
You know what, Chair, I think my question's been asked, so I'll leave it there.
Very much. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. This question's to planning staff, and I appreciate the questions raised by Councillor Kirby-Young, but isn't it right that we frequently and in fact routinely approve rezonings that we know in the current economic circumstances are not viable, that won't go ahead in the short term, and we don't question the applicant's ability or timing or strategy? So we don't usually require that they go ahead in any particular time frame, or we don't insist that the applicant themselves go ahead. I'd just like some clarification on that.
A fair question. So typically through a rezoning process, we will undertake a pro forma review or an evaluation of a project to help ensure that the appropriate public benefits are being secured with it. Typically with rental, below market rental or social housing, the ability to deliver public benefits is challenged just because of viability overall. These projects are difficult to make pencil and make work. Our role in this is not to vet whether or not a project will proceed immediately after public hearing. We evaluate them on the merits of the planning aspects and against council policy. We certainly want to see viable projects going forward. Recently, back in June, we brought forward a report to council outlining some opportunities to help improve viability on projects because of the current economic climate. You'll see another report later this fall with additional opportunities to help support projects that are struggling right now too. So though we don't necessarily condition it, those are things that council could look at as well to proceed. But in general, what we look at is the project being presented to council from a zoning and policy perspective. And I would suggest generally development is not a spectator sport. They're actively looking to proceed with their projects.
And thanks very much for that. I'm also, I guess I'm somewhat confused about, so if we make the decision to refund the development charges that were already paid, we're not, paying twice. We're not refunding and then paying another grant. We're just refunding.
Correct. And just to clarify, we're not refunding the DCLs. We're not able to refund the DCLs under DCL bylaw. The grant is a separate exchange, and it's a one for one. There's no double refund or double waiver associated with it.
Thanks for clarifying. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a question through you to staff. I just want to get clarity on the structure of this. So am I correct that BC Housing has not yet purchased the building from Fabric? First question.
I'd hesitate to give you the wrong information. I'm not 100% sure if they've actually closed on the project. I understand that there is the deal framework there, and this is what this change is looking at. I'm not sure if I can look over for a nod, but I understand they have closed. Okay, sorry, they have closed. I see.
They have closed. Okay, yeah. So I'm just trying to understand why we would be, I guess, refunding in a way by giving the grant, the DCL payment that Fabric made to the city to BC Housing. I'm just having a bit of trouble wrapping my head around that because it's not actually BC Housing that paid that DCL.
Fair.
It's Fabric.
And I'm not privy to all of the inner workings of the deal. What we understand is for BC Housing to help support the viability of this project, they are looking for that grant to help support that. Again, if there were a social housing project the DCL would have been waived and or exempt in the first place too. So I think that's the kind of construct, but I'm not sure if I can answer the details of the terms exactly.
Yeah, but do we have any line of sight into the deal that was made between Fabric and BC Housing in terms of the purchase price of the building? Is that public information?
I don't
Or
have
can
any
that
of
be
that.
shared?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry.
I feel like that's pretty crucial to make this decision from my perspective. Other question was around the CHIP grants. Have we ever directly awarded one of those to BC Housing? Don't those go to nonprofits? Because this is kind of you're saying this is sort of a similar concept.
I'll ask my colleague Andy to join as well, and I'll just say as well, the questions around the grant can certainly be asked, and the applicant and proponent can certainly speak to them at council next week as well.
Okay, just on that though, if we approve this, then it's kind of relying on the grant being approved, because that seems to be necessary to change the tenure. That's why I'm asking at this juncture.
Again, they are mutually exclusive decisions for council. One is this one that requires the public hearing to change the permitted use and tenure of the project in terms of social housing. If the council were to approve this change and want to see social housing, but refuse the grant application next week, they can stand separate. Whether or not the proponent proceeds is then their decision. And I think you'd be more informed from that conversation on Tuesday in terms of some of the questions that you have that I'm not able to answer.
Okay. Understood.
And just to follow up on the CHIP, I actually am not 100% sure, so I can make sure that we have staff here to answer some of those more detailed questions on the CHIP grant program when the report comes forward next week.
Okay. Okay, that's it for questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments?
No.
Thanks very much. Okay, Council will now make its decision on the application. Do we have a mover for the recommendations? Councillor Fry, seconder. Councillor Orr. Okay, council members, is there any discussion? Okay, I'll advance Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. I appreciate BC Housing doing this work and providing this opportunity for social housing. I feel as though we need social housing in every neighbourhood. I live near social housing and my neighbours add a lot to our community, and I feel like from the fact that we're going to have a reputable operator and the thought that's gone into this project, I think that there's no doubt that once this building is occupied, the neighbours will not notice any difference between what was originally proposed and what's going to be there now. So I will very enthusiastically support this project, the rezoning.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I want to acknowledge right off the bat that I think YWCA is a respected operator with a track record in the city, and particularly supporting women and families is great. And it is a new and a quality building that would provide quality homes. So I can appreciate the comments from some folks that came to a public hearing expecting that this would be a rental project, and then I also hear comments that Fabric also intended to sell. I think that sometimes council only gets a partial picture, quite honestly, of what the intentions are around some of these projects in the public hearings. And I think the public expects us to kind of assess them with a critical eye and try to get a sense of what's really happening and look at things. I will say that I am enthusiastic about the sort of respected track record of the operator. I am not enthusiastic at all about the context of how this is being structured and set up for the project. And yes, it is true that we're in difficult economic conditions, and yes, it is true that not all projects necessarily proceed swiftly or all end up being viable. But the intention when somebody brings something forward to public hearing is that pro formas have been done, that the work has been undertaken, and that people are bringing forward a project that they actually intend to build, sort of barring any other economic challenges that may arise during the timeline. What we heard here is that Fabric always, quote, intended to sell the project. And what we're hearing, and I'm getting a distinct impression, is that something in the deal that was done between BC Housing and Fabric sort of feels like, oh, it'll work if we just get this money back from the city. And I don't think it's the city of Vancouver's job. And I'm trying to keep my comments to the matter at hand. I know it's around tenure. I do think it's my responsibility as a councillor at public hearings like this to approve projects that we know can be delivered. The building is built. It has already the existing housing tenure agreement for market rental. So that would continue in the event that, for whatever reason, the project wasn't viable for social housing. But I do feel that these decisions are tied, and while they're delineated as separate, it does fetter council's hands a little bit. And no, we're not in the business of giving grants to BC Housing. We do give CHIP grants and some things from that's generated from the empty homes tax, typically as a source of funding to valid nonprofit operators, et cetera. But we've gotten into a whole lot of issues as a city in having our infrastructure deficit and otherwise, because we strayed way out of our lane and paying for a lot of other things that senior levels of government should pay for. And that's where this feels like this is going to me. So I think council has been placed in a rock and a hard place on this decision, to be honest, because there's a building that people should be living in. There's a lot of people that need this housing. There's a good operator on the table in front of us. I do not like how this is being structured and presented. And I have concerns about that, structuring the process and what's really going underneath in terms of how this project is viewed, that it's determined that the finances are going to work to be viable. And I don't think that that's fair to the public and to council, quite honestly, in how this has been structured. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fry.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to support this. In fact, I feel quite pleased to support this. I attended the groundbreaking for this project. It's an excellent location, and you know, I think that what we're discussing today does not materially change the form or the structure of the building or the impacts on the park or the neighborhood. What it does do is create an opportunity through changing the enactment to allow, I think, a very, beyond just reputable, an excellent operator. And I'm privileged to live near a couple of YWCA projects because we care about the Nuts Must Library and the Crabtree Corner. And I know the excellent work that YWCA does, in particular for moms with kids and frankly, folks who are struggling. And I think this is a tremendous opportunity for the YWCA's vision to see this as an excellent location and see this as an amazing project and an opportunity for families that may be struggling. And I also need to just reflect this decision today does not fetter council to approve or not approve a future grant request that's coming next week. This is really about changing the enactment, and on those grounds alone, I'm entirely comfortable. And I do want to just take the opportunity to thank the proponents, the YWCA. I really do appreciate the work you do in our community, and thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff and the applicant. Just a couple of reflections on this application. I think what we're hearing here is that we're in an environment right now where we need to pivot at times. And what I'm seeing here, this isn't actually the first time that we've had, maybe not quite around a housing agreement, but we have had projects come forward where land has been rezoned, and then years later there's changes for whatever reason. But I do think, acknowledging my colleagues, I think there's been some very good questions asked tonight, and I think that very much reflects our role in having to give these applications some scrutiny. And I think there's been some very good questions asked about the sequencing of how we deal with the change in a housing agreement and then the grant that's coming to council next week. So just to acknowledge that, I think that's important. To the speakers, and there was only a couple, but I know there's this question about again, the planning process is that there was the planning done for market rental, and that was approved. And now, several years later, we're looking at a pivot, which as I signaled, we're seeing this in terms of the economic environment. But what I think is also important to keep in mind is that the built form hasn't changed in that respect. We are talking about tenure, but social housing is effectively rental housing. It's just not market rental housing. So I think, yes, there is a change there. But that brings me to my last point, which is we have a great, valued, proven partner, the YWCA, that is wanting to step in here and deliver that social housing for women and children. And as has been identified by my colleagues, is we do have a gap. We've talked about this, is that when we talk about in our housing strategy, but wanting to have social housing and different, a continuum of housing, we have different groups that need to be served by that housing. We have women and children, we have women fleeing violence, we have seniors, elderly, we have youth aging out of care. And so there's a whole spectrum of individual groups that need particular supports and services. And so I think this will ultimately end up being a very positive contribution to the neighborhood and the community. And so from my perspective, setting aside some of the sequencing questions that arose, I'm prepared to support the application as it stands today. We'll deal with the grant application next week.
I think we're at time.
Oh, is it really 5 minutes? Wow. Gosh.
I don't know why, but I've got 7 minutes on the timer already.
Thank you, Chair, for keeping me on track.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thank you. Good comments from my colleagues so far. I also wanted to echo my appreciation of YWCA as a very trusted and experienced operator. I don't have any concerns about the organization or who's proposed to be living in this building, or the change of use, frankly. But I am concerned around the way this has been structured, because it seems to be two separate decisions which depend on each other. And I can't help but think by approving this, if it's approved tonight, it really exerts quite a bit of pressure on us this week around the grant decision and making that decision in an objective way. So I feel a little bit conflicted. It also, this is not the city's decision to purchase this building, and this is not the city's decision to sell the building. BC Housing made the decision to purchase this building, and the private developer made the decision to sell the building. So again, I feel a little bit caught in the middle where we are being asked to contribute over $1 million to something that's really a provincial government responsibility and not a decision that the city made. So that's where I'm at on this. It's not about the operator. It's not about the fact of social housing. I have no issue of social housing being built here from the get-go. But this is a market rental project. This is changing the terms of the agreement. That's not an issue for me. My issue is us contributing $1.4 million. And I know that's a decision we're going to make this week, but I feel like this process is not ideal for making a decision tonight. Because I feel like the decision tonight is very connected to the decision this week, and they're dependent on each other. So I'll just leave it there for now. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I'm going to cede the chair to Councillor Montague just to close out with a few of my own comments. First of all, I just want to thank everybody in the chamber tonight, staff, presenters, and an applicant, for I think what has been a useful and rigorous conversation. This is right from the very beginning. My first questions, I asked questions about how typical these kinds of changes are made, and they're not typical. But I do know that as we build our city, it is incredibly important that we have a nimbleness and an understanding of the all the various factors that go into being able to build and occupy new housing in our city. And so I don't discount in the slightest any of the concern about the process behind this. I do think, as it's been pointed out, there'll be an opportunity next week for us to have an even further conversation. I expect there will be, given tonight. I also did hear BC Housing speaking about this earlier on, and I did pick up that some of the affordability tied to this project meaning the levels of rents and the ability to make sure that people that we're able to deliver that low market housing is contingent on the economics of this project, some of which clearly is being borne by the city, but that's not untypical, and because we do that regularly for social housing projects. We were those DCL requirements. I don't think it needs to be repeated. It has been said several times, but the fact is that the operator, YWCA, is excellent, and we're lucky to have them in our city. And so, with all of these sort of considerations in mind, I do feel as though this has been a really good, important, and useful discussion to look at projects like this. But the fact is that we are have the opportunity here to provide housing for women and children, particularly in a fantastic community that I know a little bit. I live quite close to it. I've visited Clerk Park. I've been in the area a lot of times, and I think this would be a wonderful neighbor. And as I said, when I drove by it early this morning, coming back from a jog, I was struck the fact that it was still had the lights off, and I want to be able to drive by it very soon and see the lights on. So with that, I'll be supporting this change, but I, again, appreciate all the comments of my colleagues. I think it's been a very helpful discussion. And so with that, I will now call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Just waiting for Councillor Meisner.
Sorry, I'm having some problems with my X panel. Can I get an abstention, please?
Okay. Abstention. Yeah, I got that. Okay. Thanks very much. All right. That passes with Councillors Bly and Sim absent and Councillor Kirby-Young and Meisner abstaining. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 2. That completes item 1. Before we get this item, we'll probably just clear the room here, get things turned over. We'll take a one minute recess. CD1 rezoning 111 Broughton Street. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to disclose? Okay, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Arcadis Architects Canada Incorporated to rezone 1111 Broughton Street from RM-5 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 25-story residential building containing 136 social housing units, a floor space ratio of 18.8 and a height of 81 meters or 266 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence have been received since referral to the public hearing. 24 pieces of correspondence in support, 37 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thanks very much. Okay, this is the first for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061455#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be heard at the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Welcome.
Great. Thank you very much. Just double checking we have the presentation there. Perfect. So good evening, Chair, Council. I'm Robert White, rezoning planner for this application. I'll note recommendation B in the summary and recommendations has been revised from the referral report to remove mention of amending the noise control bylaw. An amendment to the noise control bylaw is not required, and it was included in the referral report in error. The site, shown in red, is located on the north side of Broughton Street, west of St. Young Lane in the West End. The surrounding context consists primarily of multifamily residential buildings, ranging from 3 to 4 stories, of wood frame apartments, up to 22-story concrete towers. The site has sat vacant since the previous building was destroyed by fire in 2018. The area is well served by public transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community facilities, and not to mention the commercial streets nearby along Davie, Denman, and Robson Streets. The site is located within the catchment area of Lord Roberts Elementary and King George Secondary, as well as the future Cole Harbour Elementary. According to the Vancouver School Board's Enrollment Projections Update June 2025, Lord Roberts will be operating at a 118% capacity utilization by 2030, and King George at 208% by 2030. I'll note the referral report references information from the 2020 long-range facilities plan, and the anticipated enrollments have increased slightly in the new 2025 projections. The West End rezoning policy enables consideration of this rezoning application, which is located within Area A of the policy. Applications can only be considered in this Area A if 100% of the residential floor area is social housing. This application, on a site owned by a nonprofit and reviewed under the SHORT program to expedite the review of social housing applications, proposes a 25-story residential building with indoor and outdoor rooftop amenity space, as well as an amenity room on the ground floor accessible for community gatherings. It proposes 136 social housing units, a height of 81 meters, and an FSR of 18.8. 2 levels of underground bicycle parking is proposed, as well as a residential loading space and a passenger loading space off Jepson Young Lane. An accessible parking space will also be required at a future development application stage. This project will meet the city's definition of social housing, which, as we've heard tonight, requires a minimum of 30% of units to be below housing income limits rental rates. The social housing units must also be owned and operated by a nonprofit, society, or government agency. Those housing income limits rental rates are shown in the table on the slide, ranging from a maximum of $1,450 for studio units up to a maximum of $2,150 for 3-bedroom units. The remaining units may be rented at market rates, depending on senior government funding and financing. A virtual Q&A period was held earlier this year from February 12th to 25th, and we received a total of 122 pieces of correspondence. Support was expressed for the new housing, the proposed height, density, and massing of the building, and the location. We also heard concerns regarding the proposed height, density, and massing of the building, traffic and parking impacts, and concerns around neighborhood character impacts. In response to these concerns, staff note the immediate neighborhood includes a number of towers up to 22 stories, and while this density is high, the floor plate is small due to the small lot size. In November 2023, Council approved changes to the parking bylaw, some of which eliminated all vehicle parking requirements downtown, including the West End. This is with the exception of loading and visitor parking spaces. Passenger, rather. Given the small site area, proposed social housing use, and limited ability to provide vehicle parking below grade, staff support a relaxation to the parking bylaw for this site to require at minimum, one living space, one visitor space, and one accessible space. Lastly, the slender tower form responds well and contributes to the varied character of buildings in the West End. Looking at the public benefits resulting from this application, they are the 136 social housing units delivered and secured as social housing for the greater of 60 years or the life of the building. DCLs are not required for social housing, and so this project is exempt. In conclusion, the application aligns with the West End rezoning policy, and it advances the social housing targets by delivering 136 new social housing units. Staff recommend approval of the application, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Go ahead. Would the applicant like to speak to the application? Go ahead.
Good evening, members of council. Thank you very much for having us be able to speak to you. I'm Martin Bruckner, architect with Arcadis Architects in Vancouver. I just wanted to say very briefly that this project will provide much needed housing. It will be a unique building which responds to the characteristic urban fabric of the West End. It's been around for many years. It will be a sustainable building with low carbon HVAC and domestic hot water systems. And that's all I'm going to say about this building. I think it's a great building, and we're here to answer questions. Our client, David Kite, he will say a few words with ownership.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here, I am the CEO of the Bloom Group, and I'm here to just discuss a little bit about our history and what we do in the city. We have been active in Vancouver for over 60 years, beginning as a St. James Social Service Society, operating Mays Place Hospice in the downtown east side. Our primary funders are BC Housing and Vancouver Coastal Health, and they enable us to provide the services that we do. Those services include 177 beds for our mental health and addictions across 5 buildings, 2 women and children's shelters, one with 54 low barrier beds for women in crisis, and another shelter for women and children comprised of 32 beds and 10 transitional units, excuse me, that assist women-led families in rebuilding their lives. We also operate 96 affordable housing units on the downtown east side and 221 units at Nicholson Tower in the West End. In addition, we offer the only financial guardianship service for at-risk seniors in British Columbia outside of the public guardian trustee. Many of our affordable units are filled through our ongoing partnerships with other community organizations such as Blade Runners, the Dr. Peter Center, and McLaren Housing Society. During the process which brings us here tonight, we have actively engaged with several organizations in the West End, such as Dignity Senior Society, Living with Pride, Rainbow Refugees, and the West End Seniors Network. Our intent is to create a community within this building that reflects the culture and diversity of the West End. We would also like to acknowledge the generous donation of the land upon which we plan to construct this building in a model that does not rely on public funding. Funding from CMHC's ALCP program allows us to do this. More than 90% of the rents collected will go to support the mortgage on this building and the creation of a reserve fund to maintain the quality of the building. This guideline ensures that we will charge the lowest rents possible to make this project financially viable. In closing, I'd just like to reiterate our intention to create a building that not only reflects the diversity of the West End, but also offers a viable rental option for those who live and work in the area. Our intent is to add to the vibrancy of this community. Thank you.
Very much. Okay. So are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? In advance, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A couple questions on the project. I'm understanding there's no vehicle parking. Is there any provision for car share in the development?
Speak quickly to that. They will need to provide a TDM plan as future stages, so that could include access to car share or transit passes or things like that. If the applicant wants to speak any more to that.
I think what Mr. White has just said is correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was a mention about trying to achieve the lowest rents possible for the non-social housing units in the building. I guess the building is social housing, but could you elaborate on that a bit? Because I understand that the 30% is at Hills rates, but the rest of the building is market rental. So just looking for more information as to what you're thinking in terms of rents and how you're going to achieve low rents on those non-Hills units.
Hi there, happy to respond to that part of your question. So as you pointed out, 30% of the unit will be at maximum Hills rents, if not lower, and the rest of the building can be up to full market rent. But if we go forward with this project, we'll need to qualify for financing through CMHC's ACLP program, which has its own affordability requirements as well. And so it's possible that the rest of the building is not rented at full market rent. It's too early to say exactly where those rents will settle. We don't know today.
Yeah, but that's just because CMHC has requirements around affordability as a condition of financing. Is that what you're referring to?
That's right.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for that. That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. All right. This is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061-455# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We will now hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Our first speaker today is speaker number 1, Taylor Westermark Current. Is Taylor present?
Speaker 1 is not on the line.
On the line. Okay. Speaker 2, Diane Coate. Very much. Come to the podium.
Mayor, council, staff, and guests. I'm here to speak against the proposal to build a 289-foot-high, 25-story building on the 65.5-foot times 65.9-foot property at 111 Broughton Street that, if it is approved, will have an astounding floor space ratio of 18.9. This is extremely concerning for many reasons. In the applicant's words, an infill development of this density happens in a few select locations in the world. In fact, there are no other buildings in Vancouver with a density as high as 18.9 FSR on a 65 by 65-foot parcel of land, and for good reason. It is massively out of proportion for the lot and for the neighborhood context. Although I'm highly supportive of social housing, the language in the proposal seems to shift between social housing, below market housing, and market rental. If it is anything like the experience with the Lorne, it could easily shift from an affordable to luxury housing once the city is no longer scrutinizing it. But this is not my main focus tonight. I'm opposed to this rezoning proposal at this site, and these are some of my reasons. The proposed building does not have any setback, and based on the drawings, it appears to go to the outer edge of each side of the property. And the reasons are obvious. There is no land to accommodate it. I suggest anyone supporting the construction of this building actually go to the site. It previously had a large house on it that burned down. The proposed structure will dwarf the adjacent buildings. It will be wedged between buildings that are between 4 and 7 stories high. One is a 7-story heritage building across the laneway. There will be a separation between them. However, the 4-story Thomas Fee House heritage development, a model for West End, will not be so lucky. The new structure will be right up against it, leaving it vulnerable to damage from the construction process aside from other considerations. When the West End plan was created, residents made it clear that they wanted to respect the special character of the area. The West End is an asset to the city. Many people, including city planners, agree that this building will be too big. Jamming a massively tall and dense tower on this site is contrary to the conclusions of the West End Plan consultation process. It is 4 times taller, and it does not have space for greenery as laid out in the plan. In fact, the applicants will be relying on the sidewalk and boulevard for landscaping. There will be only one off-site loading space with a passenger drop-off for the building with 136 units. I did not see a plan for managing emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances, service vehicles, deliveries, and Uber, Lyft, taxi pickups. The neighborhood is already busy accommodating existing traffic. We need a plan. Placing this extremely high building on this site goes against the previous assurances through the West End plan process that the towers would be constructed along the transit corridors, not within the center and heart of the West End neighborhood. Once the city allows this building to proceed, it will set a precedent for other disproportionately large buildings to be constructed in the heart of the West End, making an end to the unique community that exists today. Across the West End, older and heritage buildings are being restored and repurposed. On Nicholas Street, a 4-story building is almost completed on a lot about the size of 111 Brout Street. Direct the applicant to find an alternative site or to make major adjustments to the size and design of this one. Approving the proposed rezoning would be a significant move backwards, and frankly, it is disingenuous to suggest otherwise. Finally, please remember, this application is not consistent with the West End Community Plan and the West End rezoning policy as originally consulted on and approved in 2013. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaker 3 is Riho Calda, and they're on the phone. Speaker, are you there?
This call will be recorded.
Hello, Riha, are you there? Sorry. We try the next. Speaker, are you there? Hello? Speaker, are you there? Okay, we will come back to them. All right, speaker 4 is Bobo Irish. Bobo. Bobo's not on the line right now. Speaker 5 has withdrawn. Speaker 6. Speaker 6 is Jordan Boltitude. Jordan, are you there on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Jordan, yeah, go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thanks, Chair. Good evening, Chair and Council. My name is Jordan. I'm a settler residing on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I'm here tonight as a representative of Gordon Neighborhood House, a place-based nonprofit that has served the West End for over 80 years. Our vision is simple: to ensure that the West End remains a vibrant and active community where everyone is empowered to play an active role in civil society. I'm here tonight to express the neighborhood house's full support for the proposed housing development at 1111 Broughton Street. Gordon Neighborhood House has had the privilege of working with the Bloom Group for many years. They have been an active participant in our Food Hub program with their subsidized housing in Nicholson Tower, serving as a drop-off point for recovered food and community hampers. Beyond this partnership, the Bloom Group provides compassionate support to their tenants and contributes meaningfully to the health and vibrancy of the broader Western community. It is significant that this project is being led by the Bloom Group and not a private developer, because their work is rooted in social purpose, not profit. We are confident that this project will create tangible, positive outcomes for tenants and neighbors alike, ensuring that this development becomes not just housing, but a thriving part of our community fabric. In work on local anti-poverty initiatives, I see every day how deeply the housing crisis affects our neighbors, not in abstract statistics, but in the faces of seniors choosing between rent and groceries, and in the stories of young people forced to leave the community they love because they simply can't afford to stay. Still, the numbers tell a story that can't be ignored. 1 in 4 West End residents lives below Canada's official poverty line. The median household income in our neighborhood is just $51,000 a year, the second lowest in Vancouver, and nearly half of all households earn less than that. 49% of renters and 27% of homeowners spend more than 30% of their income on housing, meaning many are stretching their budgets to accommodate expenses well beyond the benchmark for affordability. These pressures are compounded by a decade of increases more than 25% above inflation, in a neighborhood where 80% of households rent, and only 8% of those rentals are subsidized. Additionally, 88% of new housing built in the neighborhood is luxury rental housing geared towards people living on higher incomes. The West End has the lowest vacancy rates in Metro Vancouver at just 0.6%, and the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is now $2,800 a month. We know who is being left behind by these realities. A huge population of seniors living alone on fixed incomes and young adults trying to build their futures. I know I've already thrown many numbers at you tonight, but I would be remiss if I didn't highlight that 54% of West End residents aged 15 to 24 live below the poverty line, over half, and a staggering 20 percentage points higher than the citywide average. These numbers tell us one thing clearly. The West End is at a tipping point. Without meaningful investment in affordable housing, we risk losing the social and economic diversity that makes this community special. That's why developments like this are so essential. This project will ensure that at least 30% of its homes are considered affordable, including 2-bedroom units, a house type that is desperately needed in the West End. The proposed affordable units would rent for roughly half the cost of the average market rate in our area. Importantly, this development also includes a social amenity space at the street level, a feature that community organizations like ours can use to connect directly with residents. This kind of integration builds stronger, more resilient communities, where people can access the services and relationships that support their well-being right in their building. The site itself is also ideally located. It provides flat, direct access to an existing major transit route at the intersection of Lee and Broughton. 3 grocery stores are within a 6-minute walk, and essential community resources are a stone throw away, including Gordon Neighborhood House, the West End Seniors Network, Community, and the West End Community Center, to name a few. It also aligns directly with the goals of the Housing Vancouver strategy, to deliver the right supply, support renters, and protect diversity that defines our neighborhoods. Approving this project is not just about adding new units to the map. It's about ensuring that the people who make the West End what it is can continue to live here. The West End has long been a model of what inclusive urban living can look like. By supporting this development, you have the opportunity to reaffirm that vision, a city where everyone, regardless of income, has a place to call home. Thank you for your time and for your continued commitment to building a more affordable and equitable Vancouver.
Thanks very much, Speaker. Okay, Speaker number 7, Landon Hoyt. Landon is in the chamber. Come on up to the podium, please. Hello, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. Coming at you from a bit of a different hat tonight, but my name is Landon Hoyt, and I serve as the board chair of the Bloom Group. And tonight I'm speaking on behalf of our entire board of directors. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening in support of the rezoning application for 1111 Broughton Street. Since 1961, the Bloom Group has been a trusted community partner in Vancouver, providing housing, health, and social services for seniors, women and children in crisis, and low-income residents. Our vision is simple but powerful, a strong and resilient community where everyone has a stable home and the supports to live healthy, self-determined lives. We've built and operated affordable and supportive housing across the city for more than 6 decades. always in partnership with government funders and community stakeholders. At 1111 Broughton, we're proposing a purpose-built rental tower designed with seniors in mind, helping long-time West End residents age in place and stay connected to their neighborhood. The project includes 136 rental homes with 40 units at housing income limits as determined by BC Housing. It also features well-designed indoor and outdoor amenities that foster community and wellness among residents. This proposal directly advances several of the city's key housing goals. It increases secure rental housing in a high-demand neighborhood. It contributes affordable homes for seniors on fixed incomes, and it fulfills the West End Community Plan's vision of support aging in place. The Bloom Group has a long record of success in delivering and operating housing for seniors and other vulnerable residents in our city. Council and the community can be confident that this project will be responsibly managed with strong operational capacity and accountability. This is 136 new rental homes in a neighborhood where vacancy rates are extremely low. The 40 affordable units fill a critical gap for seniors who want to remain close to their networks, doctors, and community supports. This project also helps prevent displacement and builds social sustainability in the West End. The building is designed with sensitivity to daylight, shadowing, and view cone impacts. It reinforces what makes the West End great, a walkable, service-rich community near English Bay, transit, and everyday amenities. We've also conducted extensive engagement in the community and have the supports of the West End Business Improvement Association, Gordon Neighborhood House, as you just heard, Dignity Senior Society, McLaren Housing, and many others. Purpose-built rental housing, especially with social and affordable component, is a long-term investment in community stability and inclusion. The West End is often a landing place for so many immigrants, seniors, and newcomers, given its proximity to downtown and services. By adding aging-in-place housing in the West End, we also help reduce pressure on other neighborhoods and strengthen the city's overall housing ecosystem. In summary, this project represents a rare and high-quality opportunity, a thoughtfully designed rental tower in a prime location with meaningfully and affordable, delivered by a proven nonprofit developer with deep roots in the community. I'm proud, along with our board, to bring forward this proposal, and we respectfully ask Council to support the rezoning for 1111 Broughton Street so that we can continue building a Vancouver where everyone has a place to call home. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much. Okay, our next speaker, Speaker 8, is Parker Zhang. Parker, are you on the phone?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you for your time, Council. My name is Parker Zhang. I'm a resident of the West End, and I'm speaking today in support of rezoning application for 1111 Broughton. Affordable housing is in desperate need in Vancouver, and as a resident of the West End, I see firsthand how the convenience and vibrancy of this neighborhood attracts people and also keeps people here like seniors. Yet, its rising costs are pushing many longtime residents out, and I'm particularly encouraged that this proposal focuses on affordable housing for seniors. In a highly desirable walkable area like the West End, seniors living on fixed incomes are often first to be displaced. These are residents who have deep, long-standing ties to this community, people who have spent their majority of their lives here, contributing to its culture, volunteer networks, and local identity. They should have the ability to continue living in the community that they've helped build and not be forced to move away due to rising housing costs. This project represents an important step towards making that possible and ensuring that the West End remains a place for everyone across generations and maintaining its community character. Now, as a working student, I personally also experienced the challenges of balancing studies with the high cost of living. Many rents, including myself, are spending well over 30% of our income on housing in the West End, and that's not even including other living costs such as food and utilities. Expanding affordable housing options would make a real difference for those struggling to make ends meet. But if we fail to provide affordable homes, we risk losing talented young people, including university graduates, who want to build their futures here but simply can't afford to stay. That would not just be a social loss, but an economic loss for the city. And I'm sure you can understand that the funding and investment we put into educating our children and young adults is immense. To have them leave after graduating would be a lost investment, all simply because of how expensive it has become to live in Vancouver. So for those reasons, I strongly encourage you to vote in favor of the 1111 Broughton Street rezoning application and to continue advancing affordable housing initiatives to make Vancouver a city where everyone, from seniors to students, can live and thrive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Speaker. Okay, Speaker number 9 is Rachel Schechter on the phone. Rachel, are you there?
I am.
Very good. You've got 5 minutes. Thanks.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I am here to speak in opposition to the proposed development. At the outset, I want to emphasize that I am a strong supporter of building affordable and accessible housing. However, as a long-term resident of the West End, I believe this proposal is deeply flawed and should not proceed as currently crafted. The lot in question is frankly too small. It was previously home to a single-family home, and constructing a 25-story building on it would be grossly out of scale. This is underscored by the proposed floor space ratio of 18.8, which is astonishingly high. The suggestion that this proposal is, quote, consistent with the surrounding urban context, end quote, is difficult to take seriously. The lot is immediately adjacent to 3 heritage buildings, ranging from 3 to 6 stories, and the construction of a 25-story tower would create a stark and jarring contrast. While the West End does have a mix of buildings of various heights, most of the larger towers are situated on much larger lots, providing a more appropriate context. Take, for example, the Lauren, a building located just a half block away on Broughton and Comox. It is, I believe, 5 stories shorter and occupies a lot roughly 4 times larger than this proposed site, with ample parking and amenities to serve its residents. One of the unique qualities that makes the West End special is its vibrant, mixed-scale neighborhood. If you walk around the nearby area, you'll notice that most buildings of medium scale are decorated for Halloween, with residents ready to hand out candy tomorrow. This speaks to our sense of community, a sense of connection fostered by buildings at a human scale. These buildings are not so towering as to obscure sight lines or limit social interaction. They are designed for engagement, where you can see your neighbors and what is happening on the street level, and they in turn can see you. This creates a real sense of connection and accountability. No one is arguing that this lot shouldn't be developed, nor is anyone disputing the validity of the applicant's good works. However, the project that is ultimately approved should be one that respects and enhances the neighborhood's character. It should prioritize building community and providing adequate and meaningful living space for families. The proposal, as it stands, fails to meet these goals and does not align with maintaining the West End as a livable and sustainable neighborhood. I urge you to reject the proposal, and should a new development move forward, I encourage a design that includes a higher proportion of secured housing at low rents, more family-oriented units, and more careful consideration of height, setbacks, density, and livability through comprehensive shadow, sunlight, and impact studies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Speaker. Okay, Speaker 10 is Helga Pakazar. Helga, are you here? Hello.
Hello, I'm Helga Pakasar. I'm a West End resident, off and on since the 1980s, and 20 years ago became a property owner in the Thomas Fee House strata, which abuts this development. I've witnessed many profound changes to our urban fabric with out-of-proportion developments, such as this one, increasingly destroying the character and livability of this unique neighborhood with its mix of building types and very diverse population. Yet until tonight, I have been silent. My main concern is how this tower appears to be thrown together in haste as if a test case, a precedent for new schemes whereby huge buildings might be shoehorned into tiny lots. The simplistic renderings and drawings don't show the project's real impact. For example, the next door site of the historic Thomas Fee House, a turreted Victorian masterpiece, is shown as an abstract geometric block. This is an indication of the level of respect the planners hold for the tower's surrounding character. The timing, too, is suspect. Since on January 25th, 2025, the mayor declared that the city would no longer build new social housing, yet the developer managed to squeeze an application in early January. How is it that the West End Community Plan once again gets adjusted in service of new developments, like it did with the Lauren, a 10-year-old rental high-rise in the immediate area, initially supported as affordable housing with units for seniors, now no longer offered? Today, the Lauren rents at above market. Adjustments to the West End plan last year conveniently opened up options for this particular proposal. While touted as important guidelines, that planning document again loses integrity and purpose as promises are overturned. So how can I trust that this development will reign as social housing, including fully subsidized units? I only tonight hear that this is also subject to market rentals. I personally would support a building that was much more than 30% of the fully subsidized units. So these really appear as tiny studios that are now being pushed as a new model in the condo market. Perhaps this will be easily transferable in the coming years. I also have questions about the Broughton high-rise itself, which is decidedly not at an appropriate scale for the neighborhood, sitting in relation to adjacent low-rise buildings. A precedent for a rental high-rise nearby, the Lauren again, is on a large lot with outdoor spaces and many amenities, whereas here a tiny property zoned for a 1902 single-family home is surprisingly expanded to accommodate 136 units for at least 150 residents. The plan seems really out of sync with the social purposes of long-term housing for vulnerable citizens, and how the different units are calculated, the marketing issue, why only 30% fully subsidized units are really something that concerns me. Jamming people into this tower like sardines in high-density conditions is shamefully retrograde, unsafe, and insensitive to the needs and lifestyles of its residents. The scale is simply wrong for healthy living, particularly for families with children, as studies have revealed. There need to be more social spaces throughout the tower. The West End is not so well served with community spaces like the local library, a 40-year-old facility that is always overcrowded. Street parking is scarce. Where would staff park? In every way, the entire project is ill-considered. To state, as the city report does or implies, that the contemporary design is aligned with early modernist West End buildings is absurd, especially given the ongoing demolition of many of those still little modernist gems. This cookie-cutter and clumsy building is far from what we should expect and need for good contemporary architecture. It appears to be plopped down, could be anywhere, and does not address the challenges of the site in any but the most cursory ways. The fact that a blank wall will block light and a view through bedroom windows in our building characterizes such a thoughtless approach that prioritizes a maximum number of units. As Michael Geller, a respected voice about urban planning issues and highly knowledgeable about the city's urban challenges, has succinctly put it, this development is completely wrong and needs to be reconsidered.
Speaker, that's your time.
That's my time? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Um,
Okay. So, Speaker, thank you.
Though, just say one more thing, that I hope that what will be decided is that this purpose-built building can and should be a productive opportunity to customize sustainable social housing. So don't treat it as an ad hoc solution for more crisis management.
You have other speakers, so we'll continue on. So Speaker 11 is withdrawn. Speaker 12 is Louis Mercier on the phone. Louis, are you there?
I am.
Very good. You've got 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I'm as a proud resident of the West End, it's all about getting more housing out there. We know how expensive housing is in Vancouver, and I live in one of the high rises that would face the proposed project, and it would fit right into the skyline, and it has a third of affordable housing units. I do not see any potential objections to the project, and it offers would revitalize a bit the neighborhood, since there's also like a mix of older buildings, and we need to have a good stable supply for the following decades. So I think personally I'm all for the project, especially because it's a nonprofit that is developing it, and as a young person myself, I'm 22 years old. There's a important need for more affordable housing units in the city's core. I personally appreciate the quality of the project. I mean, having rooftop amenities, having a good design that integrates well in the neighborhood, I think is a good thing, especially in like a walkable community. And, you know, I think, yes, we can say that, you know, some development projects are not for the common good and are not, don't give back to the city, don't integrate well. But I think this project is the opposite of that. It is spearheaded by a nonprofit, and as I said, it integrates well, in my opinion, with the neighborhood. So yeah, I'm all for it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, speaker 13 is Peter Tivy on the phone. Peter, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Peter Tivy. I've lived in the downtown West End for almost 3 years, and I live at 1407 Pendrell Street, the unit immediately beside 1111 Broughton Street. I oppose this application and respectfully ask council to reject it. I'm speaking as the neighbor next door and on behalf of our small 8-unit strata, 2 of which of our homes are in a designated heritage house. This proposal is an extremely aggressive tower on a single lot sized for a single family home. There is no example anywhere in Vancouver or British Columbia of a tower of this height and mass being placed on a house-sized lot with 0 setback from the street. It would rise straight up from the property line to property line, wailing off the homes beside it. It is completely out of scale for this site, and it would destroy the rhythm, spacing, and scale that define this block. To be clear, this is not an appropriate site for a tower. These types of high-rise buildings were meant in the West End plan to be located on major streets like Denman or Davie, where there is infrastructure, setbacks, and context for this height. There are numerous suitable sites in the West End that align with that intent, yet somehow this one is being pushed forward on an impossibly small residential parcel. The city should be instead encouraging lot consolidations with neighboring parcels that would create a more appropriate setback and protect heritage and achieve real planning outcome for this block. The lot itself has sat empty since a fire destroyed the heritage home that once stood there. Now, another tower is being proposed on the same small lot, again with no setback and no consideration for the neighboring buildings. For my home, which has a patio directly looking over the site, the proposed structure would rise flush with my patio and skylights. My home would be incredibly vulnerable to damage, as would my neighbors, during construction, and the character, privacy, and sunlight of my home would be permanently lost. There was absolutely no consultation with us or our strata. Our strata reached out once directly to the proponent and received no response. After weeks of silence, we contacted the real estate broker, of which took over a month to hear back. And we were told by the proponent that they would only consider speaking with us if the application was rejected by the City of Vancouver. That is entirely of their engagement with the neighbors. That was the entirety of their engagement with the neighbors that are most affected by this proposal. The submission materials also describe our building as 3 stories. Well, I live on the 4th floor. So how can this proposal make it through the city planning with inaccurate drawings showing my home on the 3rd floor when I live on the 4th floor? As proposed, this tower would sit flush with that level, cutting off all daylight and creating direct sight lines into my bedroom and in my patio. These are not just theoretical, these are real impacts that have on myself and my neighbors. Our strata also includes a heritage designated home split into 2 strata lots. The heritage already limits what we can do in our strata, and building a tower hard line to our property line would completely box us in, leaving no future flexibility for any coordinated redevelopment of this block in the future, essentially creating a dead lot for our property. The city should be looking to plan this block holistically, balancing heritage protection and thoughtful growth. This proposal completely ignores that. Earlier this year, there was a major fire in another building managed by the Bloom Group on Nelson Street, reportedly caused by discarded smoking materials, and the exterior still, today, has not been fully repaired. When you combine that with the fire that destroyed the original heritage home on this lot, it paints a very concerning picture. Now with no setback with our own property containing a heritage building. This history makes me deeply uneasy about the proponent's record of safety and building stewardship. It shows a troubling pattern of negligence and poor maintenance. In just the past 2 weeks on our block alone, our garage has been broken into, car windows have been smashed, and there have been repeated acts of vandalism. And any project in this density should come with a clear, enforceable building management plan, and yet none has been provided. In summary, this tower is on a house-sized lot with zero setback, with no precedent in the city of Vancouver or British Columbia. These towers belong on major streets like Davie and Denman, and the land was, and there's been absolutely no meaningful consultation to anyone in the neighboring properties. The submission also mistakes our building height, identifying it as 3 stories instead of 4, which has serious concerns for the privacy and safety issues in the building. This project is essentially wildly out of place, seems very inconsistent with the spirit of the West End plan, and it disregards the scale, the community input, and basically common sense. I oppose this application and strongly urge council to reject it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Speaker. Okay, we have another speaker, Speaker 14, Amelia Alvarez. Is Amelia Alvarez? Come to the podium, please, Amelia. And you have 5 minutes to speak.
Good evening. My name is Emilia Alvarez. My husband and I purchased the heritage house located at 1119 Broughton Street. We raised 3 children in our home and have been long-time West End residents. When we purchased the property, crime and prostitution were rampant right outside our home. We were part of the neighborhood alliance that successfully brought an injunction to stop it. This took place in the early 1980s. We have been around long enough to see the many changes to the neighborhood. It's clear that more affordable housing is needed, but not what has been proposed by the Bloom Group. I am wondering if anyone has considered the impact that a building such as this will have in the neighborhood. In particularly, I'm referring to the children and families that live in the area. There is Lord Roberts Elementary School located just 2 blocks away. It is one of the largest elementary schools in Vancouver. King George Secondary and Lord Roberts Annex are also a short walking distance away. On Pendrell Street, between Nicola Street and Cardero Street, there are 2 busy housing buildings that house mainly families and children. In 2012, the United Church, located in the corner of Broughton and Comox Street, was demolished and replaced with a 22-floor tower. But the services that this church provided to the community were never replaced. A project such as this will have an adverse effect on the community, particularly on the most vulnerable of our society, the children. We are in no way opposed to social housing. In fact, we would love to see the City of Vancouver purchase the lot and build housing for low-income families with children. A 3- or 4-story social housing building would be a great addition to to the neighborhood. The 18.9 FSR proposal is quite outrageous. The lot is very small, and this would set a dangerous precedent if it were to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have another speaker, speaker 15, Kareem Verji. Right ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Karim. I'm here to express strong support for the rezoning at 111 Broughton Street. I have seen firsthand the impact that safe, stable, affordable housing has had on people. For many individuals and families, housing is not simply a roof. It is the foundation for mental and physical health, employment and training sustainability, recovery from trauma or addiction, connection to services and community support, dignity, safety, and belonging. Stable housing is often the turning point that allows people to rebuild their lives. Community impact. This project is a meaningful step forward, addressing Vancouver's affordability crisis in a way that supports long-term community health. It ensures that seniors aging in poverty, people living with disabilities, and frontline and service workers are able to afford housing in our community. This is a location that matters because supporting deeply affordable housing works best where residents are close to essential services and healthcare, near transit and community programs within walkable distance of groceries, libraries, and the parks, and integrated into a neighborhood, not isolated from it. The West End offers those conditions. It's an inclusive, transit-rich, service-connected community, exactly the kind of environment where low-income residents can succeed. The rezoning reflects Vancouver's stated values of inclusion, equity, social resilience, housing first principles, a community where people of all backgrounds and incomes belong. And it aligns with the city strategy that emphasizes increasing non-market housing in established neighborhoods with strong service networks. A healthy community isn't defined by who has the most privilege. It is defined by how well we support those who face the greatest barriers. Housing creates stability, stability creates opportunity, opportunity creates community strength. In closing, on behalf of those who rely on affordable housing and social supports to survive and thrive in our city, I urge the Council to approve this rezoning. These projects reflect the best of who we are and the kind of city we want to build, one where everyone has a place to call home. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to be more inclusive in Vancouver.
Thank you very much for coming to speak. All right, so we're going to go back to the top. We had 3. Okay, so this is now so first of all, Clerk, are there any other additional speakers on the line currently?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Maybe I'll just get that person to come through and we'll get them to identify themselves, their residency. Okay, I will. Yeah, for sure. Okay, speaker, are you there? Hello? Hello, speaker, are you there? Looking like they were coming on. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445 # before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We will now take a 2-minute recess for any additional speakers to call in or come forward to the podium. We have a speaker on the line. Speaker number 4, Bobo Irish. Bobo, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Bobo. Go ahead. You got 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I won't take that long. Yeah, sorry I missed my spot. I was putting my kids to sleep. Yeah, the project at 1111 Rotten, I think it's a great proposal. I'm actually really excited to see how we can do a tall development on a small lot. I know there's a lot of complaints about whether a high-rise fits within the downtown core, which seems a little bit silly. Concerns about parking, obviously. It's sort of the zero-sum thinking that we think when everyone's sort of competing for the same space, as opposed to trying to think, how do we actually use our space more efficiently? So yeah, I'm really excited to see this proposal. Right now, we're really struggling to put even multiplexes kind of fit on a 60 foot by 60 foot lot, right? There are a few of those around where I live, and it's kind of all duplexes. So to be able to see how that fits with a 20 plus story tower, I think is going to be kind of neat. Small floor plates, which hopefully means a lot of, you get like a small floor plate tower, which means more. Yeah, and it seems like it's pretty cool. Works out, and I hope that you support it.
Okay. Thanks very much, Bobo. Okay. Clerk, any more speakers waiting? Okay. We're just working to identify our next speakers. We'll just be a moment. Hello, speaker on the line with 0699 is part of your phone number. Are you there? Hello, speaker. Are you there? Much success tonight. Okay. Is there a speaker there with the number is 8040 in your phone number?
Hello, yes.
Hi, speaker. Can you give us your name, please, and whether you're a resident of Vancouver?
Yes, I'm a resident of the West End of Vancouver, West End resident for 10 years.
Okay. And your name?
Quentin?
Quentin. Okay. All right. You have
I'd
5 minutes. Yeah, go right ahead. You've got
Thank
5
you.
minutes.
Thank you. I'm also calling on but I am a member of the board of the EDA, the political party. We just closed on a property on 1050 Broughton Street, which is about half a block away from the development that's proposed. Look, there's a Catholic church on the corner, Guardian Angels. My grandparents attended that church decades ago. It's celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. And what everyone is raising the concern about the disaster of community being decimated by this development, I actually walked by there today on my way back to help my mom that's moving into the unit that we just acquired. It's the smallest space. I would even be concerned to build a house on that, to be honest with you, with some of the mansions we have in Vancouver. The thought that we're going to have this, I don't even know what to call it. It's just the most outlandish idea to just dishevel a community. And I feel for the gentleman that was on earlier that's directly right next to the property. At least we have half a block away. But it's just going to be the biggest disaster in the West End's history. And it's going to set precedent to have more and more of these big developers with big budgets coming in that say it's for social housing. And then, as we've heard at the development previously proposed, that gets rolled into something else, right? It's kind of the bait and switch. It's no secret that this has been going on in Vancouver for a long time. So if we want to really protect the residents of this community, we need to protect this block. It's fine if it's going to be on Denman Street or Davie Street, like the other people have said, but to have it in a residential, there's no through lane too. So at the end of that street on Broughton, it's blocked off a block down. So talking about traffic and parking, there's nowhere for all these residents to park their cars, which I assume a lot of them will have. The West End is already really, really stretched. Like, I live in the West End. It's hard to find permanent parking at night. If you get back after 10 o'clock, good luck. You're not going to find any places on the street. So this is just way out of context, way out of scale, and we need to really, really talk to our political leaders and make our voices heard if you are opposed to this, which there's a lot of people that don't even know that this is going on. I found out about it, not from my realtor that told me about it, but the priest at Guardian Angels Church. So I assume that there's a lot of people that have no idea what this is intended for. And if they did, it would be a massive, there would be a lot more people calling in. But it's just kind of swept under the rug, like a lot of developments in the city, and we need to stop this, or else our community is going to be overrun with many more developments, destroying the community and integrity. Not only the heritage buildings that are right in line with the street, but the sense of community. Like the other lady was saying, we have this connection here. I've lived in the West End for 10 years, and we don't want it to turn into a Yale town. If you want to live in Yale town, go there. But West End has a very unique, personable environment, and this development will absolutely destroy that. And there'll be one after another after another. And to the lady's point earlier that said what comes with social housing is prostitution, drugs, violent crime, break-ins. Hey, if that's what you want, by all means, go ahead, build this. If we want to protect our seniors, if we want to protect the school children that are walking by there every day to the schools that are in the neighborhood, we really have to look at what's going on in our city and be very mindful of the consequences of actions of this. So I'll leave it with that. I oppose this, and I hope other people become aware of it and will speak up and become politically involved to let the leaders that be their voices heard. Thank you.
Very much. So we're looking for another speaker on the line with the digits 1981 at the end of your phone line. Are you there, speaker?
Is it 1989?
1981. Are you at 89?
I am.
Okay, well, that'll have to do for now. Speaker, can you give us your name, please, and whether you're a resident of Vancouver?
My name is Candy, and I am a resident at Broughton Terrace, which is kitty corner to this lot at 1080 Broughton Street.
Very good. You have 5 minutes to speak. Go ahead.
I just quickly want to say that there are a lot of heritage buildings that are adjacent to this lot. There's Thomas Fee House, has been mentioned. There's Gainsborough Place, the apartment building built in 1912. Pendrell Mansions is also adjacent. It's just around the corner on Pendrell Street. And the Queen Charlotte will definitely be caught in the shadow of such a high-rise should it be constructed. My biggest concern is that we're looking at placing a massive amount of mass on a substrate that is glacial till, basically. And it's such a small footprint. I wonder if any sort of geotechnical evaluation has been done to determine that the surrounding buildings will not be negatively impacted and will in effect slide into the hole once it's dug to erect this building. My other comment, I'm completely in favor of social housing. I think it's a vital component of the fabric of our community. It isn't the social housing that I oppose. It's the size of this building in this streetscape. It has absolutely no place. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. So we have another person on the line with the digit 0790. Speaker, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you give me your name and whether you're a resident of the city of Vancouver?
Yep, my name is Allison Pickford, and I am a resident of Vancouver. I've been living in the West End for the past 5 years. I oppose this proposal and urge council to reject it. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, so I apologize that I might be a little bit jumbled, but I'm just so disturbed, frankly, by the lack of response of the community opposing it. And I think it speaks to what was mentioned by the previous caller, that not many people know about this. I myself just found out about it 2 days ago. The proposal was introduced earlier by, I believe, somebody by the Bloomberg group, as being aligned with the urban fabric of the West End, but I don't see how a towering building that does not fit within the West End planning guidelines and policies can be anything that fits within the urban fabric. I agree with Speaker 2 with their concerns that this goes against all of the West End planning guidelines that dictate that buildings should not be over 6 stories, and if they are, they should be, I believe it's a 2-block radius away from other buildings and should not interfere with the green space and sunlight that are affecting the other buildings surrounding them. It was mentioned at the beginning that the schools in the district are at a 118 and a 200% capacity. So one of my concerns beyond the height of the building is that these potential children that will be living here will not be able to go to school. Vancouver does not have school buses, so if children do not get their catchment school, which many do not, given these numbers, their parents have to drive them to schools. How are these parents going to drive their children to schools when there's no parking? As the previous caller mentioned, we have very limited permit street parking, and we have even less in the last few months, as many of the Lime scooter spaces have taken up 2-3 parking spaces at a time. I urge the council to consider the West End planning guidelines and not approve more applications for buildings that will disrupt the current urban fabric, as was stated, of buildings that will tower above other residences. Frankly, it's really frustrating that the city puts in the effort of creating these zoning guidelines in place, of saying that buildings cannot be above a certain height, and then they do not follow through and they don't bother to reject the many applications that come forward. I fully support the social housing, and I think it's great. I strongly believe that seniors and everyone deserves to stay in their homes, stay in their communities. However, as previously discussed, 30% is not a great number. And as with the Lauren, there's no assurance that these percentages can change in the future and that they will not remain low income. So that's all I have to say. I oppose this, and I really hope that this does not go forward.
When a privileged chair, if you're speaking, we can't hear you online.
Sorry. Thanks very much. Speaker, are you there? Do we have a speaker with number 0699? Is there a speaker there? Clerk, do we have anybody on the line? I'm going to then just, okay. So, all right. After we've heard from any speakers tonight, so seeing that there are no further speakers, I'm going to close the speakers list. Clerk, has there been a large volume of public comments received on this item since 5 p.m.?
No, there has not.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, I am now going to close the receipt of public comments. Okay, does the applicant have any closing comments? Okay. Does staff have any closing comments?
I'll invite Paul Chang to come and provide some comments. Thank you.
Good evening. Paul Chang, Assistant Director of Development Planning. Just wanted to provide a little bit of context in the urban design thinking that we had for this site. It's a very unusual site, as you can see. It is 65 feet by 65 feet. It only faces a flanking street and a lane. It doesn't even have actually a frontage on the main street. When we were approached with this site by a nonprofit housing provider, we thought it was really interesting, an interesting opportunity. When we look at social housing projects, we view the urban design through a different lens than through market-based projects. There are some considerations, and I'll delineate them here. The first one is we're very aware that it is going to be owned and operated by a nonprofit. And because it's classified as social housing, all of it has to be rental, and 30% of the rental units have to be well below market rates. So as a result, nonprofits aren't playing on the same playing field as a market developer. If they had only the same density and height that a market developer could get, they would lose the game every time, and they wouldn't be able to actually develop. So they always need more height and density. So we understand that part. We also understand that the housing provider is a nonprofit. They're not permitted to make a profit. So any extra density doesn't go into somebody's investment income. Any extra density that generates any extra income goes directly back into the affordability of the units in the project itself. Finally, one thing that's very important to really understand is that these projects are very rare. Out of all of the different items that this council has seen for rezonings, the relative proportion of them being social housing are really, really small. So as a result, we make exceptions to the urban design that we would other expect from market-based projects. The market-based projects would actually generate an overall kind of grid of urban design that we would see so that all the buildings after accumulated development next to each other would create an overall kind of public realm that we would deem acceptable. Sometimes that rule has to be broken, but only rarely if it is for a very good public benefit, and we view social housing as a very important public benefit. So that would be the trade-off that we're actually discussing here. For this particular site in particular, there was a very interesting kind of set of opportunities that we noticed. First of all, there was going to be open space around this tower in the provision of the existing lane and the street itself. Also, there was going to be, we knew that the neighbor to the west didn't have any other rezoning opportunities for market development. We don't have policy to allow that. So if they wanted to develop, it would only be under the existing zoning. And if they wanted to do a tower, they would have to actually have a much larger site. So they would have to consolidate and provide big setbacks from this tower. Finally, for the particular property to the south, they have a shared property line, and that particular development actually has a party wall right on the property line facing this property too. So it is an abrupt transition that's there right now. And yes, we recognize that this tower would create a larger, much taller party wall on the property line if it was actually adopted by council. But having said that, we also knew that because of the rarity of social housing projects, this would be the exception rather than the rule. This would be the only tower in the vicinity. There would be plenty of open blue sky all around this particular tower. So that's kind of comprises some of the thinking that we have in allowing something like this. It is an exception, not the rule, in terms of the way something fits into the neighborhood.
Okay, thanks very much. Does council have any questions, final questions for staff? No additional questions for the applicant are permitted.
Thanks, Chair. Question for staff. I mean, I've approved buildings that are taller than this, but generally those buildings have setbacks, and those setbacks are there because it allows the tree canopy and the building not to look so towering over the rest of the streetscape. I have approved buildings that have no parking, but those buildings are generally within a block or two of SkyTrains. I've approved buildings that are on smaller lots, but I don't think I've approved a building that's on a lot this small. So I'm wondering if you can alleviate some of those concerns that have that this is something that I don't think has ever come to council before, as well as what is the floor plate of this building and what would be a normal floor plate size for a 25-story building.
Thank you, Councillor. Robert White, rezoning planner. I'll just quickly respond. As we've seen tonight and as we've heard and as we've read in the report, the West End rezoning policy does allow for social housing in this area. With that in mind, we kind of look to landowners or people in the area, nonprofits that want to develop something and rely on them to bring forward a proposal that is feasible to them. To your other questions, I'll look to Paul Chang again to respond.
Just to answer your question, Councillor, about the floor plate, it's 3,500 square foot floor plate. And I think that we all kind of know intuitively that that is a highly inefficient floor plate for any developer to take on. That probably explains partially the reason why they need that extra height as well. They need to kind of overcome that inefficiency and get to a certain amount of kind of critical mass of floor space in order for their numbers to actually make it work, alongside with the extra added drag of providing 30% of the units in non-market rates as well. Typically, I'm sure council knows that our market towers typically have a 6,500 square foot floor plate kind of baseline that they can actually play with, but they usually would be able to only do that if they had a large enough site. Yes, this is a very small site, and we're proposing to council that we enable a tower despite the smallness of the site, because of the fact that there's a neat opportunity here where its neighbors won't do towers.
Okay, so only 30% of this is going to be below market. So I would suggest then that potentially we're looking at, a large number of these units will be working. The individuals that are working will probably have cars. Was there thought in that at all when you decided that no parking would be part of this development?
Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, that's probably more of a question for the applicant, but I can say based on the application before us, having a lot this small would make it very difficult to provide underground vehicle parking, just trying to fit a ramp, trying to fit the maneuvering space. We know the vehicle elevators are very expensive as well. So any of those additional costs would have removed the ability to propose as many social housing units as they're proposing. I'll quickly say too, it is 30% of the units at 30% of the household incomes, the household's income. And that is a minimum requirement for units in the building. The other units in the building can go anywhere from that 30% affordability piece up to market rates.
Right, but there's a good chance that a lot of the people living in this building will have cars. Was that considered at all by staff when they brought this forward?
That is where the some of those transportation demand management features come into place. That's also where this project is responding to the parking bylaw at the time that it was submitted, and the parking bylaw at the time says 0 parking is required. And so we look to the regulations that we have in place on how we review these proposals.
One last question. If this was not a nonprofit, if this was someone coming in with just market rental, or strata, would this have been brought to council?
No, this would not have been supported by the policy.
Okay, thank you. I'm out of time.
Thanks very much, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. Similar questions to my colleague. I'd like to know from staff if there's any other comparable buildings in Vancouver with this lot size and FSR, like in particular downtown, but in Vancouver in general. Are there any other buildings like this, or is this very unique?
It's a great question. It is a very unique situation with a very small site and a 25-story tower on it. I don't know if we're aware of a similarly sized lot with a similarly sized building. No.
Okay, thank you. Was there a previous proposal that the city is aware of for this site by Bloom Group? I saw a comment by somebody in the community about there being a previous proposal, but I don't know what that looked like.
This is the only rezoning application staff have received for this site, and it is from the Bloom Group.
Okay. And just to confirm, and it's been stated, but I just want to be clear on it, 70% of the units in the building can be rented for whatever the Bloom Group wants.
I understand that to be the case. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Will approval of this project on such a small site set a precedent for the West End in staff size?
I don't believe it will, as we've sort of discussed, and with, again, that caveat of the social housing being the only entry point into consideration of this. It's a challenging lot. It's an interesting building to be able to put on this lot. I would not see that this would be a precedent. If it does become any kind of precedent, if it says that there is opportunity for social housing through the West End rezoning policy, that's something that we'll consider on a case-by-case basis as applications come in, if they come in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what about a Broadway plan? Would something like this be permitted on this size of lot?
I don't have the specifics of the Broadway plan social housing policy off the top of my head. I think the regulations or the policy guidelines in the Broadway plan are more specific and likely include more guidelines on social housing, but I don't have that right now for you. I can look it up.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. So off the top, just to a couple of comments that had sort of characterized this as social housing, drugs and prostitution, that kind of thing. That's not really what this mix is talking about. I think you just said that 70% would be market and 30% would be below market, just to clarify for the record.
Yeah, I can quickly clarify. And sometimes there's confusion between supportive housing and social housing. This is not supportive housing. This is social housing. So the 30% affordable up to market rates.
Yeah, okay, no, and I just wanted to get that on the record because I know it can be confusing and certainly those definitions can be as well. Now, onto the more kind of difficult question. The report did not send this to UDP, saying that it was not required because it was appropriate for the context. But of course, I've looked at the bulletin that is referenced, the West End bulletin, and it talks about the kind of setbacks. I mean, it talks about towers at 40 meters for frontage. This is like 20-meter frontage. It talks about in 5.41 pretty significant setbacks, I think like 12 feet that aren't met here. Why wouldn't this have gone through UDP given it's such an exceptional, as you've outlined?
Yeah, great question. I'll look to Paul Chang again to respond.
Thanks.
Thank you for the question. It's absolutely true that if this site was subject to the particular guidelines in the bulletin for development for towers in the Broadway corridor or the Georgia corridor in the West End plan, after all of those setbacks, there would probably be no building left to actually be built. So for staff, taking this to the UDP to talk about whether or not the UDP thought that the setbacks should be varied was almost a moot point for us because we knew that if we were going to start taking more setbacks, it would actually really affect the pro forma of this particular project for this applicant. if need be, we could actually, at the development permit phase, consider taking it to the urban design panel for the architectural expression reasons of this particular project. But in terms of the overall form of development, we knew that it was a highly constrained site. There was very little opportunity to provide setbacks and shaping and things like that. So as a result, that wasn't something that we necessarily needed the UDP to tell us that that was something that was approved by them. It's something that we, staff, decided that we approve of.
I mean, isn't the function also of UDP though to provide sort of like potentially constructive criticism, not just tell you what the rules are, because obviously you know what the setbacks are, but to say, you know, perhaps the fenestration could change, perhaps there could be
Absolutely, and I think that's what I mean, Council, when I say at the development permit phase, we could consider asking for that kind of suggestion in terms of the fenestration, the architectural character, what to do with that largish blank wall that, you know, we shouldn't deny is there. It could be an opportunity for a very interesting type of cladding or mural or something like that.
Very quickly, if I may. Also, just to note, this project was reviewed under the SHORT program, where we look to bring social housing projects to council on an expedited basis. And knowing that there is an opportunity to go to UDP at a development permit stage, there was an understanding that that could be a time rather than the rezoning stage, which is generally more height use density.
I mean, to some of the comments from some of the adjacent property, the rights holders with those properties, would there be flexibility to how the impacts of the setbacks could or could not be addressed in the architectural expression as you referred to it in the DP, or is it kind of we're deciding it now?
I think we did work with the applicant during the design phase. You'll notice that part of the building where it interfaces with the lane, with the property to the lane, we were quite aware of that, the fact that that property had some living rooms that were looking directly at this site over the lane. So the design actually is indented at the exact height of where the building across the lane is located, so that it kind of enhances a little bit of extra space and distance for those people living there.
Not the hooks on the south.
That's to the north. To the south, actually, to be honest, it was less of a concern. There are no windows to the property to the south that actually look towards this property. It's just a party wall. It's just a blank wall. There is a roof deck from what I can see on Google Street View, and that roof deck has a view onto this property, but that's it. There are no windows from the development to the south that actually look towards this at all. So anybody looking out of their window after this is built won't see a difference.
Okay, I thought I heard otherwise, but I'm out of time, and thanks for the.
Thanks very much, Councillor Zhou.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, staff, for this presentation. So I have a similar concern as my colleagues regarding the size of the lot for a 25-story building. So my question here is, how many lot in West End with the similar size as this one, like for 4,300 square feet?
Not a frequent occurrence, Councillor. This lot in particular is sort of a half lot of what we might expect here. I don't have a number of what we might see in the West End, but it likely a handful.
Okay, do we have a ballpark, like, I don't know, 10, 5? Just curious to see the number.
I don't know if I can do that, Councillor. 10
Okay,
maybe,
so
10 or less.
Oh, even 10, okay.
Sure.
And you are not concerning about precedent setting for the 10 laws?
No, I think as we've seen, like the challenges of pursuing social housing really kind of weed out people that are in it for maybe the wrong reasons. So sites like this, when they come about and when they are possible and when they paper and when they work out, they are not a frequent occurrence.
Okay, so if all those 10 laws or 5 laws, whatever, they decide to do social housing, are we aligned with 25 stories on their lot?
I think we would look at those on a case-by-case basis. We would look at whether the view cones go over the site. We would look at the immediate context to the site and so forth, as we do with other applications.
Okay, so other questions. This is only 3,500 square feet floor plate. Normally, with a similar height, it's probably 5,000 or 5,500 square feet. So this is only half. From artistic design perspective, does this building looks artistically good in terms of the designing? It will be a very narrow design, very narrow floor plate, but with a very high building. Does that align with the neighborhood?
Yeah, that would align with the spirit of development historically in the West End, in the sense that as a tower gets taller, it needs to become more slender, and this is a very slender tower.
But it's not too slender.
Well, that's something that we can. If you're asking from an economics point of view, you can. I guess our applicant is saying it isn't. From an urban design point of view, it's not too slender. I can't really imagine anything being too slender. I can imagine something being too tall, but slenderness is something that is something that we seek most of the time when we can. What we really try to do with urban design in a high density type of neighborhood is to make sure that there still is large pockets of sunlight and sky around any tall tower, and their slenderness helps with that. And for this one, it is exceptionally slender.
Okay, so my last question, just to follow up your answer to Councillor Fry's question regarding the review at UDP, the urban design panel. Would this project consider a perfect fit for the review at urban design panel because of the design, because of the controversy of the site?
I think it would be great to bring this to the urban design panel during the development permit phase should council decide to approve this application at a rezoning stage, because we haven't had a chance to really talk about the architecture and the overall way this building sits on the site. We're doing broad strokes when we come to rezoning in terms of form, height, mass, and density. And we'd be very happy to really get down to a more nitty-gritty kind of like conversation about the overall architecture of the building at the development permit phase.
Okay, thanks. That's all my question. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor Kirby Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So there was a comment made earlier that it was more difficult for social housing projects and they don't have the same advantages as market housing or others. I just want to be very clear, I know this was touched on, in the West End plan, in sort of within off the villages area and the main streets, this would not be permitted, this density, unless it was social housing. The exception is being made because it's social.
That is correct.
Is that
Yes.
correct? And there's no, and in the plan it says that the exception can be made, but it seems to be a very open exception. There's no fettering around that. Is it
That's correct.
it's a pretty broad statement? Okay. With respects to the size, which has been commented on by a number of councillors, I note that there's some conditions that relate to the indoor and the outdoor amenity space. I'm looking to understand if these are binding, because it says, for example, in providing more appropriately sized, suggesting that this is undersized outdoor amenity space, that it be achieved closer to 20 square feet, quote, where possible. And then for the indoor amenity space, suggests it's also undersized and it try to achieve 15 square feet per unit, again, where possible. Can I get some indication, are those binding conditions, or is that a try it if you can, and if you can't, you can't? Because it doesn't appear to be a condition.
Yeah, great. Great question. Firstly, it's not in the draft bylaw itself, so it's not going to be regulated that way. We have encouraged it through our standard just guidelines on family housing and so forth. I'll look to my development planner to help respond.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Havan Surat planner too. Yes, staff currently evaluate as a requirement for indoor and outdoor amenity as indoor amenity to be required as 15 square feet per unit and outdoor as 20 square feet per unit. And the proposed areas for indoor and outdoor amenity are quite less. So that's the reason we left it.
How much less are they?
The outdoor amenity is around 2,000 square feet. As per requirement, it needs to have a minimum of 2,700 square feet. And the indoor amenity is 1,100 square feet required. I believe they are at around 750 square feet.
Okay, so they're undersized. So are these binding conditions that they have to meet the requirement of 15 and 20 square feet?
Yes, that's what.
So they will have to make that change? Because there's language in there that says where possible.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So we're looking at, in the conditions of approval, under part 1, we have condition 1.4 and 1.5 that is looking at these amenity spaces. They do say to explore and to provide more appropriately sized spaces, knowing the challenges that the applicant is looking at.
Team, I have a limited amount of time, so I'm really just looking for a yes or no. Are these binding conditions or not?
No.
They're not binding. Okay, and then the 120 square feet that's noted on the plaza outside that's also incredibly small. That's adding some space. Also, can you tell me about the shadowing? It says normally shadowing would not be allowed, but it says that shadowing will happen on the West End Mini Park.
That is correct.
How much shadowing and when?
We are looking at shadowing in the, the spring and fall equinox, maybe around half an hour or so, around 4 p.m.
Okay, and we also relaxed the family units from the required 50% down to 20% based on who we think is going to live in the building, but that requirement was also waived?
That's correct. The applicant proposed 5.8%. We're asking for 20%, but knowing that their programming is generally seniors and singles.
Okay, and do we know, has the applicant ever delivered a building of this size or this many units? Are we aware?
I don't have that number or that answer myself. It's we're aware of a Nicholson Tower being fairly similar.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Chair. I think I missed the window to ask questions to the applicant, so maybe staff will hopefully be able to help with some of the questions. One was, I thought I heard in the initial presentation that the land was donated to Bloom Group. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I'm hearing a yes. Okay. I take it that there's no mortgage or anything on it.
I don't believe so, Councillor.
Okay. And also, can you refresh for me? I thought I heard financing has already been secured for this, albeit it has to go through a rezoning process, but is that correct as well? And to what degree is the financing secured?
I can't answer that question myself. That may have been a question for the applicant. Do we have any information on that?
I think the applicant did talk a bit about that. My understanding would be that they would be seeking financing, but at this early stage in the process, it would be hard for them to be able to confirm that the financing is secured. Typically, nonprofits are seeking financing and grants from all different levels of government, CMHC, BC Housing, sometimes the city through the CHIP grants. And so that all starts to get more finalized as they move through the rezoning process and then through the permitting when they get their DPs.
Okay. And so in the context of staff have referenced several times sort of the unique circumstance around this site and this project in the context of social housing, do you have a sense as to what, because I'm hearing residents are questioning, the site itself, the size, but also the tower form and the height and the number of units. Do you have any information you can share with me that what drove sort of the proposal in terms of the number of units and height, given that doesn't sound like there's land costs in this project, but I don't want to assume. I mean, obviously some remediation and so on, but can you speak to that in terms of the rationale?
Only high level, building housing is expensive in the city. Building social housing is expensive. Building housing that is affordable for people is expensive. And so if the applicant found an opportunity where they could pursue that, I'm sure they were looking at a height and form and density and number of units that would hit the right equilibrium for them to be able to afford it and to kind of contribute to the neighborhood.
Okay, I'll leave my questions there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Orr.
Yeah, just one quick one. A lot of my colleagues asked some of the stuff and cleared up a lot of the misinformation that's being heard tonight. One thing around that the social housing units would be somehow flipped or become not social housing at some point. Can you just, on the record, talk about the security of tenure for this project?
Yes, thank you for the question. As part of this, a housing agreement would be put on title, and this would come forth at the time of enactment of any kind of rezoning application approval.
But generally, when we see the security of tenures for 60 years or for the life of the building?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Thanks very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I have one more question. What would normally be allowed to be built on this site? Based on the current zoning and the current plans? Social housing aside, what could be built?
The current zoning is RM5, a 60-story building at 1.2 FSR. I mean, sorry, it's not 60-story, 60 feet. That was very bad. 60-foot tall building.
So 60 feet, about a 5-story building, 1.2 FSR, and this is 18. Have I got that right?
It's 18 FSR? 18.8, yeah.
It's 18.8, so 1.2 now, and currently, based on this site and the zoning, it would be a 5-story building.
That is correct. The FSR is probably, it can sound really high. We do have applications with that kind of FSR, even for large sites as well. It is also a function, however, of the smallness of the site itself. That makes the FSR so high.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Clerk, did we receive any additional comments since the close of public comments?
No, we did not.
Okay. Council, we will now move to a decision on this application. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Orr, second by Councillor Dominato. Okay. Council members, is there any discussion? Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've been listening to all of the discussion, the questions, and the members of the community calling in. We appreciate that. I'm really torn about this project. When I first heard about this project, I heard, social housing tower in the West End. I thought, fantastic. We desperately need social housing in the West End. And it's unusual to see a proposal come forward. But as I've, been listening tonight and learning more details about the proposal, and only hearing that 30% of the units are social housing, it does seem like a really big variance to grant permission for this building, considering what a small lot it's on. I don't think I've ever seen a tower this slender on such a small site in Vancouver. And when we're talking about a building that, yes, it's going to deliver badly needed social housing units, no doubt about that. But we are also talking about a building that is going to have 70% market units. And most of the units in the building are also studios. There's, I think, only 8 family-sized units, so 2 bedrooms and larger. I'm not sure this proposal is right for the West End. And I worry about the precedent it might set for small sites in the neighborhood. There are other towers near this site, but they are, as mentioned by some of the speakers, on much larger lots. The Lauren across the street, which was controversial when it was built, is on a lot that's 4 times larger than this lot. So I'm pretty torn on this particular project. Yeah, I think it's probably out of scale for the size of what is really a small single family lot. To think that we'd be putting a 25-story tower on a single family lot, a small single family lot, not a corner lot, it's a mid-block lot. I just have too many concerns about how this is going to turn out in terms of the livability of the neighborhood, the adjacent buildings, and the context of the neighborhood. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. So I'm now going to, seeing that there's no anybody else on the queue, I am now going to call a vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Okay, so that passes with Councillors Montague and Meisner in opposition. Okay. Thanks very much. That completes item 2. So we're going on to item 3 now. CD1 rezoning of 270 East 13th Avenue. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? We'll just give a moment here, just to give a moment for us to turn the room over here with staff. Thanks. We'll take a 2-minute recess. Okay, we will resume the meeting. I think I already did ask if anybody had a conflict of interest to disclose in this item. So I will now have the clerk will now read the application and a summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by JTA Development Consultants to rezone 270 East 13th Avenue from RM-4 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 20-story mixed-use building containing 167 rental units with 20% of the residential floor area for below-market rental units and commercial space on the ground floor. A floor space ratio of 6.8 and a height of 62.8 meters, also known as 206 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation and the yellow memorandum dated October 22nd, 2025, entitled CD-1 Rezoning 270 East 13th Avenue - Amendments to Recommendation A. The following correspondence have been received since referral to the public hearing. 4 pieces of correspondence in support, 14 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 2 pieces of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. Okay. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be heard at the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Council and members of the public. My name is Oscar Erickson, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application located at 270 East 13th Avenue. This application before you is accompanied with a yellow memo that notes the recently enacted R3, R4, R5 district schedules. The yellow memo specifies that the new zone for this site is R33. The site, shown in red, is located on 13th Avenue between Main Street and Kingsway in Mount Pleasant. The surrounding context consists primarily of residential buildings ranging from single detached houses to 3-story apartment buildings. The 7-story Cavell Garden Senior Home is located to the north of the site, here marked in yellow. The site is currently developed with a 3-story rental building. There are tenants on site eligible for tenant protection under the Tenant Relocation and Protection Policy. The area is well served by public transit, schools, parks, childcare facilities, and community centers. The site is located within the catchment area of Nightingale Elementary School and Tupper Secondary School. According to the Vancouver School Board's Enrollment Projections Update, June 2025, Nightingale Elementary School will be operating at a 74% capacity utilization by 2030, and Tupper Secondary School at 77% by 2030. Of note, the referral report references information from the 2020 Long Range Facilities Plan. The anticipated enrollment has increased slightly in the 2025 projections, but remain under capacity. Consideration of this application is enabled by the Broadway Plan, a 30-year plan which focuses on opportunities to integrate new housing, jobs, and amenities around the new Broadway subway line. The site is located in Mount Pleasant South apartment area, Area B, which allows for consideration of rezonings for 100% rental housing with 20% of the residential floor area as below market rental units. Buildings up to 20 stories and 6.5 FSR can be considered at this location. Minor increases in height and up to 0.3 FSR in additional density can be considered for delivery of local serving retail and services on the ground floor. The application submitted February 1st, 2024 proposes a mixed-use building of 20 stories with 167 rental units, where 20% of the residential floor area, approximately 33 units, are delivered as below-market rental units. The proposal includes commercial space on the ground floor, and a density of 6.8 FSR is proposed. The average starting rents are shown on this table, as well as the average annual household incomes they serve. Starting rents for the below-market units are to be discounted 20% below citywide average market rents. Based on recent data, rents for below-market units, shown in the first column, would range from $1,300 for a studio unit to $2,800 for a 3-bedroom unit. The virtual Q&A period was held from April 17 to April 30, 2024, and 169 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the proposed density and delivery of affordable housing and the local serving commercial spaces. Concerns related to building height, lack of parking and increased traffic, displacement of current tenants, and negative impact to the neighborhood character. In response to public feedback, the building height is consistent with the Broadway plan for this sub-area, and the development does not impact the protected public view. The development is required to provide parking and loading per the parking bylaw, and it is not anticipated that this site will put additional pressure on street parking in the area. Engineering conditions to provide traffic calming measures, such as upgraded speed humps in the lane, street lighting, and new sidewalk are included in Appendix B. The development is subject to the tenant relocation and protection policy, including enhanced tenant protection for renters in the Broadway plan area. Eligible tenants will be offered right of first refusal to move back into the new building at a discounted rent or at their current rent, whichever is less. They will also receive assistance finding temporary accommodations, financial support, and help with the move. For neighborhood character, the proposed development aligns with the intent of the plan. Further review of the formal development will occur at the development permit stage. The public benefits resulting from this application include the 134 market rental units and approximately 33 below market rental units. The applicant will also pay DCLs and a public art contribution. In total, the application will provide almost $2.2 million in development contributions. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan and advances the city's rental housing targets by delivering 167 rental units, of which 20% are below market rental units. Staff recommend approval, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, would the applicant like to present the application?
Thank you. Thank you and good evening, Chair, Acting Mayor, and Council. My name is James Todd, Principal of JTA Development Consultants. We are the applicant for the proposal at 270 East 13th Avenue in Mount Pleasant. We're here with our architect, Studio One, to answer any questions. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak and for your consideration of this proposal. We would like also to thank staff for their considerable work involved in bringing this application forward. We believe this application offers a strong contribution to Vancouver's housing and neighborhood goals. Our proposal includes 167 rental housing and below market housing units with ground floor commercial space to support local serving businesses and activate the street edge with uses that include commercial and medical uses given proximity to existing seniors housing looking to meet the needs of the neighborhood. We believe this application aligns with several citywide objectives: housing choice and affordability. Vancouver continues to face a rental housing crisis. We need more secured rental housing, especially options affordable for folks across incomes. By offering below market rental units, we will add genuine affordability. Transit-oriented growth. The site is well located for transit, allowing new residents to live near frequent service and reducing pressures to drive. Housing close to transit is efficient, sustainable, and helps reduce emissions. To support local businesses and neighborhood vitality, the ground floor commercial spaces are meant for neighborhood serving uses, cafes, small shops, and services. This helps activate the street, improve walkability, and ensures that new residents enrich the local context and is consistent with the Broadway plan and city goals. This application is being considered under the Broadway plan. We believe it fits the intent for growth along major corridors, mixing uses, and leverages major investments in transit infrastructure. We have been sensitive to community concerns about scale, shadowing, traffic, and livability in the review process. We will continue to work collaboratively with the community to refine the proposal and treatment of the public realm. The proposal will also follow the TRPP. Tenants have had at least 10 touch points since application, including notification, the all-tenant meeting, various updates, and the city's eligibility letter and needs assessment survey. Tenants will also be offered during interim housing options within the owner's existing portfolio with the same landlord within the same neighborhood at the tenant's choice, meaning tenants will be able to remain in the same neighborhood in interim housing before being welcomed back to a new building in a new unit. In closing, we feel this proposal brings meaningful rental housing options, affordability, and local serving commercial spaces in a location that supports sustainable growth. We ask Council to support this rezoning and help deliver the type of housing Vancouver badly needs. Thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks very much. All right. Are there any questions from council to staff and the applicant? Noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. And I see Councillor Orr. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, just a quick question. I didn't see the number on the referral report of that would be the below market. But I heard you say, sorry for staff, it's a 33? Below
Yes,
market.
that's correct. 33 below market rental units.
Okay, and then there's 34 tenants. So what if every single tenant wants to exercise the right of return?
We'd have to provide that. We'd have to provide that unit if all tenants returned, and one of the market housing units would
Just take one of the market away?
Yep, and we know that, and that's part of the, I believe,
Can
policy.
you please speak into the microphone?
The applicant team, we're aware that if all tenants were to return, that one additional unit would be required. It would be allocated from the market housing.
Okay, great, thanks. And then for staff as well, could you just go over a little bit about the setback, how the setback does not meet the plan, the Broadway plan, but it was under the Appendix B, it's required, so that happened at the design approval stage, sir?
Thank you for your question. Are you referring to the side yard setback?
Yeah.
Yeah, the side yard setback needs to meet the 8 feet minimum as per the plan, and so we've conditioned that, and they will need to meet that at DP stage, at a future stage.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, that's
it.
all my questions, thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I have just a quick question for the applicant. Noting the proximity to Mount St. Joseph Hospital and the potential to provide housing for people working in healthcare, has there been any outreach in either an awareness, or do you ever have a chance to talk to people from the hospital?
So we haven't, I'll be honest, haven't had that outreach. It's absolutely something we'd consider.
Okay. Yeah, as I noticed that we have a number of, we have a lot of requests coming in about trying to make sure that we're trying to accommodate people working, nurses, people who work in the hospitals. And so it's good to know. I couldn't help but notice that there was a research survey that went out today rating Mount St. Joseph Hospital as #1 based on Google reviews in all of Canada. So
amazing.
A shout out to the people who work at that hospital. But okay, that was my question. Really, was just about that convenience. Thank you. Okay. All right. This is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-8353, 8610, followed by participant code 1061 445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We will now hear from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium when your name is called. All right. Speakers have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And our first speaker today is speaker #1, Ruth Cherry. Ruth, hello, welcome. Just come to the podium.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. So I'm opposed to this proposal. I'm speaking broadly at first about the Broadway plan, which initially was just to be along the Broadway corridor. Somehow it expanded both north and south of the Broadway Street area, and it's deleteriously affecting the neighborhood. This particular high-rise that's being proposed at 270 East 13th Avenue is an example of a plethora of high-rises which do nothing to add to the beauty of our city for which it's lauded. And so a question that quickly arises is who actually is benefiting from this construction boom? and the investors and developers quickly come to mind. Certainly, it's not for the benefit of the majority of Vancouver residents. Even with this promise of 20% of suites being under market value, the suites in this particular building, the studio is 349 square feet, which is pretty outrageous in how small it is. So you have someone who is probably from a 600 to 700 square foot apartment going into one of these under market market suites. The 20% number, it feels like a veneer to convince a public seen as gullible into accepting the idea of such projects. The construction is not affordable housing. So it will once again maintain Vancouver as being open to more overseas investment and not for people who want to ensure a secure home unaffected by outlandish rates, for which Vancouver is also known. I believe that it is a fundamental right for people to have stable housing, and I do not believe that investors and contractors have any interest in such value. The priority is to make money. They don't care about transit. It's a selling point. They don't care about cafes or grocery stores. That too is a selling point. And I can't help but feel that there is either an inadvertent or overt contempt for the general populace of Vancouver in pushing forward projects that most know will not be of benefit to the citizens. The issue of this rental building whose height fits into the neighborhood aesthetic, which is usually 3 to 4 stories, and those places are being demolished or are slated to be demolished. And is it fair that these tenants be rent-evicted for an unaffordable eyesore? And why should they and all of us go through the decimation of a part of our city to finance someone else's investment? And lastly, well, second to last, I would like to note that there are 4 speakers that are supposed to speak here in person. I don't want that to be taken as a sign that people don't care. It's a sign that people feel that their voices don't matter. This too is last. And I'm just asking you to think about the legacy that you're leaving. Hopefully that this mayor and council will actually think about whom they are voted by. Are they voted by the people or are they voted by the contractors and investors? Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Louis Villegas.
Thank you, Chair. I have a presentation. My name is Louis Villegas. I am a Vancouver resident, practicing urbanism in Canada for over 40 years, in Canada and the US. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I oppose this tower because it belongs downtown, not in the neighborhoods, where it will destroy character and livability. Towers belong downtown. Human scale belongs in the neighborhoods. Why? Check the birth rate. BC has its lowest birth rate in Canada, along with the Yukon territories. Our economy is destroying families faster than we can make babies. Do we really think that immigration will fix that? Next. Next slide, please. Neighborhood towers evict residents and destroy families by forcing them into tiny, puny, egg crate apartments. Providing insufficient parking means the streets will be choked with cars, and the neighborhood with parking garages and storage facilities aiming to make up the difference. Yet half the towers are empty. Why? It's a market trade. The more height, the more density, the more egg crate apartments, the more profits flowing to the developer cabal. For example, Canadian banks are getting fat selling inflated mortgages. And our new Prime Minister, a former central banker. Next, please. This is what good urbanism looks like. A 100-year-old commercial street cafe in the center. Sees human scale houses built behind it and to the left. Across the street, a 2-story commercial building awaits redevelopment with 2 floors of residential on top. This is how we make good neighborhoods. Above the dotted line, we see blue sky. Steve's model will show what happens when we add towers. Next slide, please. No sky. The dotted line is drawn in the same location, between the 3rd and 4th floors. No more than half the sky is blocked, and there's still many more towers to come because we're only 3 years into the Broadway plan. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. My purpose here is to help people understand what is really going on in the places they call home. Next. One sector of the economy, real estate, is being run at crisis margins by government in order to extract revenues and please their supporters. It's not the voters that they're after, Ruth, it's the supporters. All this effort and misery to build unlivable egg-crate apartments. Next. Next, please. A renowned American urban planner, Lewis Mumford, called it civic vandalism. Next. We call it land lift or the commodification of neighborhoods. Economists call it financialization. Next slide. Financialization forces corporations to put shareholder profits ahead of service, product quality, and security. Households take on higher risk as mortgages, savings, and even retirement plans become financial instruments. In government, regulatory capture will keep the housing crisis raging in perpetuity. Next slide. Properly formulated, government financialization policy is responsible for the housing crisis. Economists see it as starting in 1980 and raging on forever. Next. 3 screenshots from a 1969 TV game show demonstrate the tower urbanism and how it works. In a nutshell, global tower products land on unsuspecting places, betraying no connection to the place. Next slide. The towers were built by New York architects and for American hotel chains, and what is known as the international style. This is in Hong Kong, but in reality it could be anywhere, even here in Mount Pleasant. Next. Each tower is more inhospitable than the previous one. There is no hint of cultural functioning and no connection with place. Not sure what kind of vacation these people won back in 1969. Next slide. The flip side of the financialization formula is the SkyTrain fiasco. Next slide. SkyTrain functions as a tool to keep resident choices artificially trapped inside the SkyTrain loop. A gold-plated people mover technology, the SkyTrain costs 11 times more to build. That means it takes passengers 1/11th of the distance they need to go. Next slide. It's a binary choice. Good government, like Alberta, builds modern LRT streetcar to the places where land is still available to build GAP, guaranteed affordable housing in perpetuity, in quality sufficient to meet or exceed demand. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Okay. Our next speaker is Stephen Bohus.
Good evening, Chair and Council. I'm a renter and a resident of Vancouver. I'm opposed to this rezoning, and I would like to stand in solidarity with the renters who may be displaced if this rezoning is approved. There are actually 39 units of rental available. So the proposal would go down to 33 units, which is a net decrease in quote affordability, and there are also issues with the size of units and other things. So this is actually a net loss. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. As Louis showed my slide earlier, I am showing the context. This has to be taken into context. There are so many mature rental buildings that are slated for demolition if these rezonings go ahead. Next slide. Just around the corner, we have about 136 units of rental in affordable buildings. Just down the street, top right is 310 East 14th with a gorgeous tree. JTA has another development on a property that has 51 units in the upper right. And then there are 2 other rental units there on East 14th and East 13th, which may go to referral on Tuesday. Next slide. This is the kind of difference in scale with one block down at 14th and Sophia. Next slide. If you look at the Mount Pleasant context, there's human scale built under the Mount Pleasant Community Plan at Carolina and Broadway. The Mount Pleasant Community Plan said that the tallest building should be the Independent on the upper right, and the Lee building was the tallest building in the area for a long time. Cavell Gardens is actually 5 stories on the other side of the street, not 7 as it is on 12th. And that is a seniors' home, and many of the seniors are very concerned about construction traffic and emergency services and noise there. And that's in the lower left. Next slide. Did a massing model. This is looking from around Main Street and Watson Street looking east, and the applicant's proposal is on the right. This is my massing model. On the left, there is 215 and 229 East 13th, which is up for referral on Tuesday, and this would actually shade Main Street in violation of solar protection policy, and would actually shade into April and August well in excess of what's allowed under the Broadway plan, would break the Broadway plan, and it's still in a referral report. Next slide. This is an aerial view, looking north, seeing some of the context, and there is only the Independent there in the background, second tower from the right that was meant to be the tallest building. Next slide. Looking southeast in the other direction from 12th. Next slide. This is looking up Sophia Street, 1.5 blocks down. You can see the building at 310 East 14th that is proposed, and the applicant's building on the other side. And to really appreciate the size and scale of FSR, I'm going to just go a little bit closer. Next slide. Yeah, that's very, very massive. This is what 6.8 FSR looks like. And you really have to crane your head to get the appreciation of how massive these buildings are. This isn't the West End. This is a completely different kind of density and scale. Next slide. That's craning up, yeah. And then you'd have several buildings of this kind of scale and density in the area. And, you know, this is where the Broadway plan really falls flat. It's not a good plan. It should be revoked, and really you shouldn't be rezoning mature rental buildings like this, which you actually don't do on the West End. In the previous proposal, like the RM 5 and 6s aren't really ready for rezoning, but you change that on the Broadway plan. Next slide. This is looking straight up, very, very massive. Next slide. There are a lot of issues with the rendering and super wide angle images that are used by staff in the referral report and on Shape Your City. I'll skip this, but I think you could have better representations. Next slide. City of Toronto actually makes this information available. The City of Vancouver has all of this behind closed doors. You have a virtual twin, but it is not FOIable to the public, or it is, but it's refused. So it takes a lot of time and effort to recreate this when the city has this information in-house and can be used by staff, but not the public. Next slide. And yeah, this Broadway plan is just destroying neighborhoods, destroying many of our cherished affordable housing buildings and displacing renters. And there's a lot of insecurity, and JTA has made no guarantees in writing that renters would actually be housed nearby. And thank you for your time, and please reject this and redo the Broadway plan. Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Gordon Mark McKenzie.
Hi, I'm Mark McKenzie. I live in the neighborhood at Prince Edward and East 15th. And it's good to see the people who are going to destroy our neighborhood. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic. We're all just folks here. You guys are trying to make money. You guys have an ideological commitment to the idea that towers are going to solve the housing crisis. And I disagree.
I'm going to just remind you not to insinuate any motives of anybody here. And
My apologies.
If you're able to make remarks without that, I'm okay
Sure.
with hearing you.
My apologies. Yeah, I was being a little bit hyperbolic. I agree. I do feel very strongly about it. I think what's going on here is somewhat analogous to what happened back in the 60s when the city wanted to punch a freeway through Chinatown. I'm not trying to suggest Mount Pleasant has the same kind of cultural or historical value as Chinatown did, but it was a notion of priorities. there was a neighborhood that had to be sacrificed because traffic had to move. Our neighborhood, Mount Pleasant, has to be sacrificed because there is a notion that rental towers are the solution to the housing crisis. Rental towers are a tool you got in the box, and I'm saying knock yourselves out, build a wall of them down Broadway if you've got it. But you're going to be smashing existing rental properties that are still functional and in a context where we have a neighborhood that is a walkable, cyclable, and also drivable space where there are families, there are elderly people, and there are young people all living in the same area. I don't know who is supposed to be able to afford to rent in these towers. Not folks who have regular wage jobs. It doesn't seem like it anyways to me. There's a reason hardly any rental buildings have been constructed in this city since the 1970s. That's because rents weren't high enough to make it worthwhile for the development industry. And now we know that, some poor chumps will spend $2,400 for a teeny tiny little apartment. And the development industry goes, it's problematic. As the previous speaker noted, he did some really great work with the visuals. We're going to create this forest of gargantuan towers, massive concrete things blocking out the sky. And there's some questions I have. How can the sewers handle all that poo from all those people that are going to get shoved into this neighborhood? And has the geotechnical work been done on this? That little triangle, Main Street, 16th, Kingsway, it's the headwaters of what had once been Brewery Creek and the former site of the tea swamp. I know for a fact, I lived there at 15th and Prince Edward. When a large truck goes barreling along 15th, the whole building quivers. It's a bowl of jelly. It's a peat bog. Can you actually shove 20-story buildings onto that kind of substrate? I'd be really interested in how you're going to do it. And if you're going to do it, Vancouver typically sacrifices its streets for years at a time to the development industry. We're going to be smashing the streets. We're going to lose lanes of traffic. All the construction workers have to come into the neighborhood. Some will come by transit, absolutely. The vast majority of them still drive their pickup trucks, and they're going to find a place to park somewhere. They've got to. How are you going to walk past this? The sidewalks are going to be gone for a year at a time. It's the standard thing that happens in construction in Vancouver are going to happen here. But what is going to happen here also is the elimination of an affordable neighborhood. Like historically Chinatown, although for very different reasons, Mount Pleasant was an affordable neighborhood. It was redeveloped in the 50s, 60s, and 70s from single family into low-rise but affordable rental properties. Now we're going to shove orders of magnitude more people into that area. They can go a little further down the hill. They can go, along Broadway and the commercial properties there. There's plenty of room there. Those are going to get sacrificed anyways. But save the rental properties that we've got. There is a character to this neighborhood, and it's essentially born out of the fact that it was affordable. And that's gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Clerk, are there any additional speakers?
No additional speakers on the line.
Okay. And no other additional speakers in the chamber? Okay. All right. Very good. Okay, this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free at 353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445 before the close of the speakers list. This phone number will be posted on X and displayed during the recess. We'll now take a 2-minute recess for any additional speakers to call in or come forward to the podium. Thank you. There we go. Clerk, do we have any additional speakers in the chamber or on the line?
No additional speakers on the line or in the chamber.
Okay, seeing there are no further speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Clerk, has there been a large volume of public comments received on this item since 5 p.m.?
No, there has not.
Okay, seeing that there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now going to close the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? None. Does staff have any closing comments?
Yellow memo that needs to be moved together with the report.
Very good. Thanks very much. Okay, does council have any final questions for staff, noting that no additional questions to the applicant are permitted? Okay, report. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Orr. All right. Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments at the close of public comments?
No, we've not.
Okay. Once again, I'll remind council that we need to move the recommendation for item 3 together with the yellow memorandum dated October 22nd, 2025, entitled CD1 Rezoning 270 East 13th Avenue, amendments to recommendation A. Council will now make its decision on this application. We already have a mover and a seconder. Council members, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to now call the vote. Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen?
I have a point of procedure. I didn't hear that it was moved, the yellow memo. I heard you say that it needed to be, but I didn't hear that the mover moved it with the yellow memo.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor. Yeah, it was moved with the yellow memo.
Okay, I was just, okay, just wanted to clarify because you read that part after, so it was confusing.
Okay, so it has been moved in and seconded. And so we acknowledge the yellow memo here. Okay. All right, seeing none, so we're now going to the voting screen. Everybody, good. Councillor Kirby on?
No, I asked my question.
Okay, no, we're on the voting panel right now. Very good. Okay, thanks very much. That passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Seconder? All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.